urging users to wake up to what he calls the dark side of social media. Longtime tech investor Roger McNamee advised Facebook founder Mark Zuckerberg in the early years of the company. He is now the author of Zucked, Waking Up to the Facebook Catastrophe. McNamee argues Facebook is a threat to democracy, public health, and users' privacy. McNamee writes about how he became convinced that Facebook is, quote, terrible for America and needed to change or be changed. Facebook is responding by saying it has changed. Roger McNamee joins us now for an interview you'll see first on CBS.
You know, the first wave of calls for Northam's resignation nationally came from those either running or considering a run for president, including my next guest, who just spent 3 days in Iowa, Democratic Senator Sherrod Brown of Ohio. Senator Brown, welcome back to Meet the Press.
Good to be back. Thank you.
Look, you added your names. You said he's got to go. He doesn't want to go. Let me ask the question this way. Is there anything he could do to convince you he should remain in the public square to lead in the healing?
Well, he should.
As you may have heard, NBC Today host Megyn Kelly's show was canceled this past week following her on-air remarks expressing acceptance of blackface. It's a racist show business practice most of us thought was long gone. But as Maurice Dubois is about to tell us, blackface has a long history in our country. And we caution you, his report unavoidably includes many offensive and disturbing images.
It happens all too frequently, often at Halloween, but not exclusively.
Good evening, guys. All of this apparently caused because of a boiler that has frozen and also because we understand that a panel exploded. But I want you to check out what's happening right here. Over here, we've had some families of inmates that have heard about what's going on standing right in front of the facility. And check this out. Those inmates, you know, we were hearing that banging. It's still happening and you can still hear it. And those lights that are flashing, we understand are night lights that they are able to buy in the commissary. So this is a developing situation, and last we heard, electricity is not expected to be back on until Monday.
Our 6th and Spring is the exact location. It was 1 o'clock in the morning after a night of singing at a karaoke bar. These two women were standing in line at a hot dog vendor thinking they were going to end their night with a hot dog. Well, instead, it wound up with a punch to their jaw, and the man who did the punching is still on the loose, and the LAPD has an all-out search, hoping someone recognizes him on that video. His face is
obtained by Pix 11 shows the fight that broke out on the platform of the 90th Street station at Roosevelt and Elmhurst Avenues in Jackson Heights, Queens. Two men on top of another, one of the men appearing to punch the one who is on the ground.
Our team is set up and ready to go on this Friday, and we're going to start with President Trump up at Bedminster, putting himself right in the middle of the culture wars again, reigniting his feud with the NFL after several players protested in preseason games last night. You're seeing some of the video. The president tweeting just a few hours ago saying the NFL players are at it again, taking a knee when they should be standing proudly for the national anthem. Numerous players from different teams wanted to show their outrage at something that most of them are unable to define. They make a fortune doing what they love. Be happy, be cool is the message from the president. Fans are paying so much money to watch and enjoy. Football game is no place to protest. Most of that money goes to the players. Anyways, he continues. Let me
get out. What you mean?
One of Facebook's early investors is urging users to wake up to what he calls the dark side of social media.
Welcome to the most hated show in the black corner of the internet. I'm your host, Mr. Blows Your Minds. And this channel here is to report, communicate, articulate, transmit, communicate, articulate, relate, unveil, decode, spread the news, whether it's by news, video, websites, or quotes from publications. As I articulate these information, I ask that the creator of the universe be here, heart, soul, mind, and spirit. Because why? The truth don't need no partner. As a descendant of the greatest people who created the so-called greatest land in the world, as a descendant of that, we give honor on this channel. And you know what my motto is? I'm never going to tell you what I heard. I'm only going to tell you what I know. Man, I know it seems like I'm a little slow about getting this stuff done due to the simple fact of a brother being suspended. Never understood why I'm being suspended, other than the simple fact that, again, they're trying to clear out the black corner of the internet because it is ruining their position, and it's ruining those people who are considered to be the protectors of the urn. And so a lot of them are trying to get certain elements out the way. But you would think that a channel like mine, right, wouldn't be in the, let's say the vista view, right, of all the other stuff that's going on. It's because of the potentiality I've always had with this channel. If you look at the numbers, you would say, I don't see what you're talking about, Mr. Blows Your Minds. Well, that's because you don't know that, again, I was the one. You won't find no channel in the black corner of the internet that has given you the insight of the prophecy of what was done 5 years ago. The video that I made that went 275,000. By the time it was going on and closing on to the third year, they stopped that video. My other videos about the letter from the Pope hit 50,000 and they stopped that one. So guess what? Mr. Blows Your Mind has the potential to be that one that they don't want to get out there. So what they do is they suppress. So they came up with it now, just came to suspension due to a little bitty piece, which means they probably went and contacted the individual so they could, because again, the information on it is magnanimous, which I still have the video. Even though I took the video down, I still archived it, right? So, let me get this out foremost. I want to say what's good to my subscribers in the house that should be happen to be watching the video by yourself. I know it's a little lonely. You know what I'm saying? Used to be a little time you did have at least a person or two to sit there and at least converse with, being in the live spirit of the show. I could actually see your comment and actually, disseminate or actually just bring forth your comment. Right now, it's just have to be for at least 90 days, right? We're gonna see after the 7th. We gotta wait till the 7th, right? So if those who would again, first before I want to thank y'all first, right? Subscribers in the house, family, all good. Passerbyers, on this show here's always a grand opening. We always got stuff in here, so go down the aisle, see something you like, hit that like button. If you see something you don't like or something you don't, hit that dislike. A manager will come out to you and, maybe give a coupon, but have you to come back for return for a discount. Maybe next time we'll get that like from you. Agents, man. Y'all, I'm saying, it's to the point it's too obvious with y'all. It's just obvious. As again, as a saying, suppressing me and trying to put my voice so that you can't be heard. A little rinky-dink channel, 2.9 subscribers, can't get past 100 views. Suspend him when he didn't have not one strike on a piece, on a video that don't make sense. Let me say, matter of fact, you went out your way to go contact the individual so he could do that, so that you could sequester that video, so you could suppress that video. Don't like the truth, do you? You think we're going to keep carrying it, right? All right, you do what you got to do, right? Because I told you the inevitable. You can hide behind. You can hide behind the badges. Oh, it's just doing my job. You can hide behind all that, whether you male or female. You can hide behind, it's just my job. It's my capacity of work. This is what the orders I was given. But the inevitable, you have to answer for all your wrongdoing. Remember that. Remember. Remember, Simba. Remember. So, anyway, let's move on, because again, I ain't gonna waste no time on that, because that's not even worse than wasting no time in. Because again, anytime when you weak like that and somebody got to constantly be working on and keeping you suppressed, that's telling you how great they is. Because I'm better than you. Now, so again, once again, it's on. No matter, take a dart, look at the map of the bubble, throw a dart. Anywhere you go, you can always find something to report on, right? And so I've seen this, and so I have to ask the question, right? I have to say, when MYOB goes wrong, MYOB. Well, what are you talking about, Mr. Blow? MYOB, mind your own business. I say that again. Mind your own business. Now, that's a kind of a good virtue in a hostile world we live in. But some people, because you're brand new, you think that you got the game down pat. You think everybody's actually going to go according to your little whims. Man, no, you just got to let people vent when venting has to be in this place. Regardless of the situation, if it has nothing to do with your immediateness and your circle or your square, then you just have to just be either, again, the old saying used to be, when there's more than one customer in line, they open up a new register, then go over there. But see, when a customer having a issue with this, say, the employees of the store or the, say, the establishment, then that is a situation that, again, if you on the outside, you don't step yourself in. Now, again, what I have to say here is because I'm not trying to condone what you're about to see. But I'm understanding that going to the story was the simple fact that what transpired, that again, maybe if you were the MYOB, you wouldn't have got the 2-piece, 3-piece with the extra fries and a cup of milk. Right? As a matter of fact, a cup of ice. You're going to need a cup of ice, right? So what happened is this situation was, again, sometimes men, there's a saying that old Mr. Robin Harris, who may rest in power, said, a quote, talking about festivity. On the highest of festivity. That means you're at a level of your pissed offness that everything it don't matter. It's all on the table. I'm going for broke. Right? Now, again, as we have opposite sex, heterosexual, again, man and female, again, those are the other preference of your choice. That is what you do behind closed doors in your bed. To each his own. Now, we was talk coming up that a man has no valid reason to actually put him hands, and I said him hands, put him hands on a female. Under no circumstances. But again, that was a time of old. In this day and age, everybody, due to equal rights and want to be equivalent, no lie. Matter of fact, they call it Generation Z, ZE, meaning there is no gender, meaning you can get it. You can get it. Get up and do your, old school, right? So, those who fall under the marquee of everybody's equal and there is no difference between man and woman. So when you, again, cross the line and forget about the difference between gender and get confrontational, we don't condone it. But you have to ask yourself, if you didn't do what you did, maybe this wouldn't have had transpired, but it doesn't condone the act. But maybe it was a lesson. Oh, he's going to get a lesson too, right? So let me show what I'm talking about, and we'll be right back. Check this out, and we should be right back.
To our 6th and Spring is the exact location. It was 1 o'clock in the morning after a night of singing at a karaoke bar. These two women were standing in line at a hot dog vendor thinking they were going to end their night with a hot dog. Well, instead, it wound up with a punch to their jaw, and the man who did the punching is still on the loose, and the LAPD has an all-out search, hoping someone recognizes him on that video. His face is very clear. The muscular man with a full beard is now wanted by the LAPD for assault. The two women that he punched out at 6th and Spring at 1 o'clock in the morning last Saturday are recovering from slight concussions.
Unfortunately, the police weren't called to 6th and Spring at the time of this incident.
You were never called?
We were never called.
And according to the LAPD, it wasn't until the next afternoon, after the women had been treated at a local hospital, that they went to an LAPD station and told them what happened. Cell phone video in hand.
This is obviously a very violent crime. We're looking at assault with a deadly weapon.
His fist. And we have slowed the video down to give you a close look. Police say he's 6'2", 6'4", well over 200 pounds, and he just ran away, and no one tried to stop him. In fact, no one called 911. And what was this fight all about? According to the victims who told police, it was over hot dogs.
Is arguing with the vendor over something. One of our victims, one of the women, says to him, "Hey, we just want to get our hot dog."
Police were told the man didn't say a word and just started throwing punches, and no one in the crowd tried to stop him. Didn't even run after him when he headed down 6th Street.
We're not sure why the people stood around and didn't intervene, although again, large man.
I talked to one man who said he's lived downtown for 20 years, didn't want to go on camera. Told me he's not surprised at the violence of what was on that video, the two women being punched. And then he showed me what he said his security camera captured right outside his apartment at 6th and Spring last December. A man attacks a woman from behind trying to steal her purse. A bystander sees it, intervenes, and starts punching out the suspect, and the woman gets away unharmed. There was no such good Samaritan around on Saturday morning. So a good example of what could happen if someone gets involved, but as I mentioned, nobody flinched, not on Saturday night. We tried to contact the two women. We were told by detectives they have no interest in talking about what happened to them. And again, the search goes on. The video is very clear. His face can be easily seen. He's a big guy. He's got tattoo on his arms. Someone has to know where he is. Reporting live from downtown Los Angeles, Dave Lopez, Kick on 9 News.
Yeah, let's hope somebody steps up.
All right, so you can see the white Hulk smashing up two white women, right? And according to the story, it says, again, as you heard, it being displayed, they was going to get them something to eat. He was already in line, had an issue dealing with whatever his order was. Hey, we're just trying to get something to eat. He had no words. He had no words. He just gave them the old Batman, you know, the old sign, with the boom, bang, bing, right? Seeing lights. It was already dark. You know, I was seeing daylight. Now, again, I'm not condoning the fact that a man is sitting there molly-whopping these two females. But again, if you were the MYOB, you wouldn't have got the 3-piece with extra fries and a cup of ice. Right? You wouldn't have got that. But now, see, again, you don't know the difference because they done blurred the lines. And some people just don't understand when somebody's intervening in the situation. That's why nobody jumped in, because it was none of their business. I'm going to say that again. You mind your business. It's one thing looking out your window, being neighborhood watch. Maybe you hit the, you hit the anonymous 911. I don't think you can even do anonymous 911, right? But anonymous local call, right? If that's what you so choose. Again, peeking out the window, seeing something being okay, recorded, whatever that might be. But many people have died getting a situation that they didn't know what it was all about. Now, again, it's not saying being a weak man and not saying that that's not what you're supposed to do. But in this situation here, obviously some of the people that was there had seen what took place. And maybe they were in agreement. So maybe you should have mind your own damn business, right? We don't know all the ins and outs. Again, it's not something that we, again, cajole or congratulate the simple fact, because, again, women, men are much stronger. Again, this dude, according to what they stated, about 6'2", 200 plus pounds. Again, didn't take much, because, again, when he was hitting them, right? When he hit the first one, boom, she fell, go back, give the other one, boom. Looked like a damn movie all for a second, but you don't normally see no man whooping no woman like that. And not two at that. And so what was the end piece, you know what I'm saying? Like, when you watch baseball, when a player got that hit, or he know it out the park, he got that little, you know what I'm saying? Like, he just knew and just walked it off. Right? That's how he hit when he gave it the last bang, boom, bang. He just walked it up and ran like the Hulk. Remember how the Hulk used to go off after he had his rage and shit? He ran off with his clothes all torn. He come back to Bill Bixby. That's how he was running and shit, right? Ain't nobody want none of that. That nigga crazy. That nigga straight up crazy. You ain't want none of that. Now, the thing was how they made the little comparison. I ain't going to let that slide by, right? Did you notice that they tried to insinuate that that brother with that white woman was stealing her purse? That ain't what he was doing. He knew her. He was smacking that drink out her damn hand, right? And he was getting up in her face. If he was trying to snatch the purse, why was he still sitting there if he missed his attempt? Why would he still be sitting there to get himself to be identified like that? And so here was this Captain Saberhole, right? Captain Saberhole come running in again. It was a black man, and he getting his rocks off, right? Liam Neeson, right? That's some shit he been talking about, right? He was just on it. So again, we don't know what that was. But you said he was trying to rob a purse. I ain't see no purse in nobody's hand, but I did see him smack that damn drink out that damn hand. But it was condoning the simple fact. He see what happens when somebody jumps in. Well, again, as Liam Neeson said in the article that I read, that white people don't go after white people, but they sure go after your ass if you black, right? So it's always their business. Matter of fact, that's why they be calling the police so much, because anytime they see you, it's their business. When white folk do it, it ain't their business. That's why nobody got involved. So anyway, we're going to move on, right? So that's just how they get down, right? But again, the key element here, MYOB. Mind your own business. What you thought Don Quixote was going to come out? Oh, what would you do? See, when he was arguing this happening? No, he didn't come out. Yeah, I know you were still looking around the corner, thought he was coming. He wasn't coming. You were seeing lights, camera, and action. Anyway, again, we don't condone it. But again, if that was just something he just spurred and went and hauled off crazy, then yeah. But again, we don't condone it. Again, he should have been able to. But again, he was like, what you all up in my business for, huh? Maybe that's the way he was raised. You know what I'm saying? Maybe it's mama, daddy, or whatever they say. When he did something like that, they just hauled off. So that's characteristic he got. Moving on. So, again, right? Again, right? So, again, let's say again, a situation like that. And you're an establishment, just like what happened there. Again, these people didn't have this, right? So just imagine this situation I'm about to show you here on this next one. That same situation we just seen took place. But they should happen to have security in there, right? Do you think, again, security being in there, what you're about to see? Let's see. Imagine him when you see this, but then afterwards, I'm going to talk about like if it would have been this dude here, right? But let's see what the difference is between that one and this one here. So let me show you, right? And I think I also got an article with that, right? I think it kind of explained a little bit of that. It's a real short article on that. And let me show you this, and we'll be right back, huh? Let's get it.
Get out. What you mean?
Oh my God! Oh my God!
Get out. What you mean?
Oh my God! Oh my God!
Man catches fire after being tased outside restaurant. You know I'm going to say that again. Man catches fire after being tased outside restaurant. This story was done February the 2nd, 2019, coming from the New York Post, and this is how it reads. This is a shocking moment. A man caught on fire after he was tased outside a restaurant in Philadelphia. Witness Pat Tackney, who filmed the incident, said he saw the man being confronted outside of Jim's Steak in the south of the United States city. Pat claims the man refused to leave the restaurant and was forcibly removed. The video shows two men, thought to be security guards from the restaurant, use a stun gun on the unnamed man before his leg catches fire. Pat wrote on Twitter, "So I witnessed a man catch fire after being tased last night." Philadelphia police said they were not notified of any situations outside of Jim's. The restaurant has not commented on the incident. All right, so we see a man getting tased outside of a Jim's Steakhouse. Seemed like they had the security there. Whatever transpired between that and the establishment, they said he got to go. Escort him out the door. I guess some couple words had some had got said. Next thing you know, again, security pulled out tase. You know what I'm saying? Seemed like they're itching for a scratch. Light my man up. Maybe he had, you know what I'm saying, 151 in his pocket, you know, a little shot bottle of 151, you know what I'm saying, that pure grain alcohol, and it bust and electricity caught on fire. My man was yelling, you know what I'm saying, "I'm burning and I can't get up." Now, it's not a funny situation for the simple fact that, you know, looked like they might have been brothers. At least the one that was tasing was a brother. And the man on fire, the way they was moving, they still didn't have no sympathy. Like, well, shit, you should have just gone move but your long hair, right? When I had to light you up. Now, let's just imagine this same scenario over there at the hot dog stand. Would he did the same thing? Would he been apprehended because of the less melanin color on his face? Would he have lit him up? Because, again, we don't be seeing that. We know that we have brothers, you know, and people of color that work for the officials or the administration of the municipalities or as security guards and so on, but we don't be seeing them doing the lighting white folks up. Oh, you ain't hesitant when it comes to black, just like we seen when they showed the story talking about, well, this is what men should do in a situation. Again, the brother slapping the drink out the dance on the distressed hand, and saying that he was trying to rob the purse, right? To try to make validation of the situation. Well, we don't know, because where's the real storyline to that? But the reason why is because he was black, and everybody's on code when they see black. When they white and they see black people, they always on code. Didn't Liam Neeson say that? When he asked, he said, "Hey, who raped you? Black bastard? Any black bastard I see, I'm getting them, killing them." Huh? That's the code, right? Because that was the foundation set up, again, the posse crowd, right? The Rough Riders and all that stuff, right? So here it is, a man being tased again. We only getting one side of the story. We didn't get this side again. What transpired? Does it justify it again? These people got these type of weapons again. As Bushwick Bill said, lifting weights to make you bigger. You come lift me, you be a, right? So again, you have the equalizer, right? So I guess tasing would be a lighter situation than to have somebody pumping 6 in you, right? And so here was a brother that had to go through that excruciating pain, no matter how more the fear of the fact that he was on fire, right? And again, just because of some disagreement in an establishment. Okay, you walked them out. But again, we pretty sure there was some extra words. There was some extras on that being said. And so again, I have the authority, and, you know, a lot of times because I have the upper hand, not me per se, but those who be in no capacity in that situation will use it just so I can get something off. And that's what normally transpires. So it is for what it is, and we're going to move on, right? So again, you know, we live in a world that, again, most of us is, you know, TV babies, right? You know, this programming, again, you go to school every day, come home, and the way it is these days, a lot of kids can't even go out damn side. So again, you got the internet programming them, TV programming them, right? They watch a lot of Netflix and stuff like that. And so, you know, what they see, again, what you see is what you believe, right? That's why the stereotypes are so ingrained in so many people, because a lot of their affiliation is never real personal. It's really based on some interpretation they done got from something they've watched. And so when you see, you know, situations, right, and the way that, you know, the perpetuating of how, you know, the hostility is in this land, because, again, the foundation that was built on it, right? This land was built on a foundation that's not good. It has no matter how much you try to paint the house, fix the attic, put a fence, you know, make a garden, the foundation of the house has never been good. So no matter how you spruce it up, right? You can whitewash it, and you know, but it's still, the foundation ain't good. And so what ended up happening is situations be arising. It seemed like no matter where, it used to be some place that was off limits, things didn't happen like that. You know, it used to be some sacred grounds, parks, right? You know what I'm saying, schools, right? Being on public transportation and things like that, being with family members, right? But you know, because of this, again, Liam Neeson and the kind of movies that he made, right? And, you know, this vengeful ass stuff. You can't get the upper hand on me and live, right? So here's a situation that transpired again in the public arena, or a public, it was in the public, right? And this had took place. So let me, you know, cue it up, get it ready for you to see it. I also got a little article that goes with it. It's not long at all, you know. And so, you know, I try to give you the fullness of what's been out there about it. So let me play this for you right quick. And matter of fact, I got to do a PSA before I even do that, right? For those who might be sitting here, again, you know, I'm like a homeless man on the corner with a cup in my hand, and all I'm asking for you is to, you know, drop something in the cup for a brother. You know what I'm saying? You know, I am the most hated show in the black corner of the internet. So, you know, again, your patronism of giving likes and dislikes, comments, and subscriptions will be very appreciated over here. And so let me go ahead and get this and then be right back. Check this out. Be right back.
Video obtained by Pix 11 shows the fight that broke out on the platform of the 90th Street station at Roosevelt and Elmhurst Avenues in Jackson Heights, Queens. Two men on top of another, one of the men appearing to punch the one who is on the ground. Watch closely as the man wearing a scarf appears to pull out an unknown object. Moments later, shots ring out.
The two males ran down from the ran down to the street and fled north on 90 Street. The male victim was pronounced dead, at the scene by EMS.
Sources say this is a person of interest sought in connection with the fatal shooting. Loved ones of the victim, who is a Hispanic male, showed up at the scene, too emotional to speak. This man heard the gunshots and saw the commotion.
I've heard of it. I was like, oh, it's a firecracker. I didn't think nothing of it. It's Sunday. It's a nice day out. And then I started hearing the sirens. I'm like, oh, it's no good.
The call came in right after 12:45. Officials say the dispute started on a Manhattan-bound 7 train. That dispute apparently spilling out onto the platform. Sources say the man was shot in the head numerous times. His face now unrecognizable. This woman works right by the subway platform. She says she heard 3 shots and then ran for cover. She watched everyone running for their lives.
So check out that staircase. That's the staircase that the person of interest fled from on 90th Street. Now, if you know anything, you recognize that individual, contact the NYPD. That number, 1-800-577-TIPS.
Disturbing daytime subway shooting in Queens, caught on video. You know I'm going to say that again. Disturbing daytime subway shooting in Queens, caught on video. This was done in the New York Post. Today's date, February the 4th, 2019, and this is how it reads. Chilling video shows the moment a man is shot to death in broad daylight on a Queens subway platform. The disturbing footage, shared on Facebook, shows 2 men wrestling on the ground Sunday with a third person in a blue coat at a southbound 7 train at 90th Street Station. Other commuters yelled and frantically tried to pull the trio apart, but 2 men kept beating on the person in the blue coat in an attempt to pry something from his hand. A blood stain can be seen next to the yellow line on the platform. After a couple of seconds, one of the men, wearing a multicolored scarf, stands holding what looks like a revolver. 6 gunshots can be heard ringing out. The person in the blue coat stumbles and appears to get shot as the person taking the video runs into the train. The victim of the shooting hasn't been identified yet. Cops said the victims was arguing with 2 men on a southbound 7 train and the dispute spilled out onto the platform. Police are looking for the 2 persons of interest in the shooting. It's unclear what the dispute was about and whether the attackers knew their victim. All right, so we have a situation that was on the subway. Seemed like there was 2-on-1. Somebody again had the old 6-piece. Looked like they took it from their homie who they was actually wrestling with, right? Again, we don't know what transpired. We don't know what was the starter. We understand the end of it, right? And again, the hostility in this land. Again, people are in such of a, dysfunctional state, right? Like you can't resolve issues anymore with just out of the, let's just say, verbal communication, right? It says two meetings of the minds, right? We don't seem to be able to have that anymore, so everything has to come to a fisticuff. It might be some disagreements, or could have been some stuff that had, again, sometimes you catch up with you, right? Some things you done did and the person done ran across your path, and then it is what it is, right? And so, again, as we've seen, there was bystanders there who were actually trying to get involved, but then they seen, the seriousness of the situation, so they were a little apprehensive. They wanted to intervene. They tried a little bit, but just imagine after homie got the gun, it seemed like, instead of 1-2 shots, he emptied the whole gun. He put all 6. And according to the story that it said here, it said that he put it in his head. Said that now his face was unrecognizable. And we heard the 6 shots, right? The 1, the 2, the 3, the 4, the 5, and the 6, right? So the homie unloaded the clip, right? Now, again, was this sporadic or a situation that just transpired? Maybe homie just like that. He just a killer like that, right? Maybe there's more to it. Again, we know we will be hearing more about that story because, again, they got to find this individual because, again, you understand, being on public property, again, they have to, the safety the citizens that use the transportation. They have to do that for that sake, otherwise it's bad for business. And I'm pretty sure, homie, again, that being New York, again, it's in Brooklyn, right? And, the gun laws are there very fierce. And so, again, I'm not sure if that was his gun or did he take the gun. If he took it from homie, again, he felt like he was threatened. They may try to use the stand your ground. Who knows, But, in that kind of situation, again, you see a lot of that on these trains and buses again, right? People, again, due to the disparity that's happening in this country, the wealth gap, and so a lot of people are frustrated and angry, and it don't take much to set off a wick for people to get into that mode, right? And so, I guess I have to say that we have to wait to see some more of this story. But the moral to the story is that, if you could take 1 second, again, to pause to try to make amends. So, again, the whole object is kind of like policemen that's trying to get home, right? And so here it was, you getting on the train and think that the last time of your life would be riding and getting off a train. Now, again, I don't know how you got off the train, right? Because, sometimes you get into that situation where people decide, oh, let's get off and let's handle this, right? And, sometimes the atmosphere where you at and people viewing you is kind of like on this internet in the black corner. A lot of people, again, that they call them bots and trolls, will antagonize people to have them to do things that normally would be not part of their square. And so it causes a lot of dysfunction, and some people feed and breed off of that. So again, for wise individuals, for your job is to really get yourself in a situation so that you don't do that, where you can actually have a meeting of the minds, right, and work that out. Because, again, we already know life is short, and so, again, we got too many other obstacles that we're dealing with just on the daily norm, just trying to survive in a land that we all been oppressed in. So, again, there's that story there for you. Again, more to become later down the line. Now, moving on to the next story will be about, again, this is becoming a little theme in this land. Again, if you are familiar about what's going on with the DOS and things of that nature, DOS is descendant of the slaves of them, those who are the ancestors, as myself and others, are the descendancy and lineage of that which has built this country that they call the greatest. And then again, there's a lot of people who are very angry that there's a step about that, right? So when I seen this story here, kind of like, well, this is kind of in the ballpark of that, right? Because what does can being they say African American, right? African American. Oh, you know what? Well, yeah, I can go. Let me do that first. I can do there. I can go there. Okay. So being an African American is distinct than that somebody who comes here voluntarily, who comes here, again, as they say, for a better life. There's a difference in my eyes that when you come here as a volunteer than when somebody who came here involuntarily, right? And there's what some people want to say, that we all came on the bottom of the boats of the ship and all that stuff. And okay, but you have to be able to prove that. And then whatever that is, then your lineage or where that designation originated from is where your claim is at. You don't get to come somewhere else and get the claimage for the people who are here originally who built it. I don't understand why that's so hard for everybody to understand, other than the fact that you must be selfish, right? So here's the story here, and again, I'll make the bridge to this. Again, I got something else later in the show to talk about that same aspect, right? So again, this story broke out on Sunday, and let me play it for you. Normally I don't touch these things, but it happens.
U.S. immigration officials arrested rapper 21 Savage in Atlanta this morning. His real name is Shay Abin Abraham Joseph. Officials say the British citizen entered the U.S. illegally in 2005, but did not leave the U.S. when his visa expired in 2006. He was convicted on felony drug charges in 2014. Deportation proceedings are underway. Abraham Joseph is nominated for 2 awards at next week's Grammy Awards.
ICE arrests rapper 21 Savage, says he's illegally present in the United States. You know I'm going to say that again. ICE arrests rapper 21 Savage, say he's illegally present in the United States. This story was done February 3rd, 2019, coming from the CNN, and this is how it reads. Grammy-nominated rapper 21 Savage was arrested in Atlanta early Sunday by U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, according to ICE spokesperson Brian Cox. The agency said he is illegally present in the United States. ICE says the rapper, whose real name is Shaya bin Abraham Joseph, is a citizen of the United Kingdom, according to Cox. The agency alleged that he entered the United States illegally July 2015. Legally. All right, so that was a short rendition of that whole entire story. I think I got the short version in there. So again, here was rapper 21 Savage, who again, a lot of people on the, again, a lot of people will do that. Again, as we go to another part of the story or the show, we're going to have another story that's similar to this here. But in this case, I think it's just the persona that people do. What they do is again, it seems like in this country, in the United States, that are people who can, again, put on the black American, can dress, swag it, act it, clothe it, culture it, but not have to be lineage to it. Do I have to say that again? Or was that very self-explanatory? And that means I'm not trying to, again, separate us as black family. Now, the reason why I say that is, again, you can have, you who are listening, to say whether you're male or female, you have brothers and sisters. When y'all have children, they will all be related because the bind is between the blood between you and your siblings. But there's going to be a distinction in them because, again, whoever the significant other is. Even though they will be related, but there will be something that is distinct of them because of whoever their mother or father is, the two that made the one. Right? So that would make the varying between them, but yet they're still by blood, by relation, by blood. But they have another bloodline that also runs in them. Now, that would be the same here in this United States. Black people who are descendant of those who come out of the South, who are part of the whole 13 colonies, who are part of the Civil War and the foundation and the building of this nation, are distinct that anybody whose parentage, who have came from other geographical locations, who end up becoming here a documented citizen, versus that who is of the soil. You understand? You mean to tell me that somebody who's been here hundreds of years versus somebody who may be one generation or two is trying to compete with those who are the descendants of that who've been here, the historical aspect of this country? And it seems that you're sitting here want to debate that or to try to to make it seem like that's crazy. That just shows the trueness of where your heart resides at. So in the case of 21 Savage, I think the persona that he displayed, because a lot of people assume because of the things that he talking about 21, right, in 6 Zone, that he made it appear that he was from Atlanta. But once all the smoke cleared, they come to find out that he's from UK, right, and that he had been here back since 2015 on a 1-year visa. That visa had expired, or 2005. Was it 2005? I think it was 2000, either 2005 or 2015. The visa had expired, and he'd been on that whole time. Again, should have kept smooth and cool about it, right? And try to. But again, I've read a story of those who are avid watchers of this show. They remember the one that I did about in Florida. There was an individual who ended up getting called up by ICE, and my man was like, the only time he's ever been to Jamaica is on a trip, right? And so he ended up getting detained by the ICE detainees because, again, I think he had a warrant for his arrest. So he was trying to go ahead and get that warrant, kind of get it squashed and cleared up. And he ended up getting detained by ICE. And they like, well, he's like, man, I'm born in Philadelphia, right? And, they singing the Fresh Prince to him and all that good stuff. But if he didn't have a boy to come down there to bring that birth certificate and his identification that they required him to have, he would have been shipped and pushed over to Jamaica and had to deal with, again, being in the country you never been in. How was you supposed to move? And, you know what I'm saying? A lot of things could have manifested in that. And so, again, the real aspect of that is black men have the high propensity to actually be apprehended and then have to prove your citizenship and whatever you can't at the time. So now, again, they're kind of funneling or tunneling people up out of here unexpectedly because you don't get to hear all the stories because, again, you don't know when it take place until later on. And that story just happened that he ended up getting out of it and he ended up relating and it became news. But again, how many people have that has happened to and that nobody know and they still fighting to try to get back. So again, as we talk about the bloodline of being in this nation, a lot of people try to be disrespectful to that or becoming angry because, again, we're trying to be distinct, not because we're not trying to be family. We're trying to be distinct is because we have a claim in this land, and that's that we're entitled to. And that, again, that does not make us better. That's just what we put in, and that's what our ancestors, that is just the beneficiary of the insurance policy they left for us for the work that they put in. Matter of fact, their work was so great to the fact that you and your parents can come from where you left, the origins of where they originated, and come here and be the beneficiaries and allow us to let you eat first off the plate, and we're waiting for you to get done. But again, we're in a new day and age where we're saying, no, hospitality, you know what I'm saying, is getting to the point where we don't have enough. So now we have to start making ways for ours, and that doesn't mean that we're excluding you. It's just the fact that we have to now get our share. So if you can't understand that, then I have to say that's something that's telling a telltale on your part. But again, 21 Savage, again, ended up being taken back to UK. And, you know, I guess that is what it is, right? But again, I'm pretty sure that's just a flare that needs to be put in the air because, again, a lot of people can't be apprehended. And again, if you don't have, you know, your papers right or you not fully, then I think that is a, you know, again, a warning for you to be paying attention to. So let's move on to the next story. So, you know, blackface has been prevalent in the news, right? We've been seeing a lot of those stories. You know, well, matter of fact, I'm not even going to go to that. Right? I got another story before I say blackface. All right, so again, let's say we've seen what transpired again, you know, the white hope knocking out 2 white women, right? We've seen that, you know, individuals on the subway look like Hispanic, right? End up shooting, killing a man, right? And then, you know, again, once you get apprehended, there's a place that they hold you in, right? Now, again, we don't advocate when you are wrong, you're just wrong. And again, with the old Beretta song, don't do the crime if you can't do the time. Yeah, right? So if you do the crime, it is doing the time. Now, under the jurisdictions of you being incarcerated, there's certain parameters that even though that you may be deemed a criminal and you might be guilty, we're not talking about innocent, we're just saying being guilty, and you could be also being innocent too, because again, it doesn't discriminate once you're in there, right? You just, everybody's considered an inmate. So there's certain guides and policies that, again, there's a certain humanity, even though you may not look at them in a humanity way, but there's a certain way that, again, according to what they say, quotes, right, what they say, there's a certain structure they need to follow, guidelines to make the safety and habitable place for the inmates. Well, I've seen this story here, right? I've seen this story here, and, you know, no, that's not what I want to go here. This took place, and again, the day that this took place was during that little Arctic cold, right? It was like that whole weather machine that they use to bring this cold in, because now it seemed like that just went away, right? But this transpired during that time. And you know, I can say for my own house, it was so damn cold, right? That shit, my throat, I think my toes was getting frostbitten and my hands was getting, that I had to crank the heat up a lot higher than I had it. And I was like, damn, it's cold outside, huh? That I was getting frostbit on my fingers and my hands. So here was a situation that this story here is going to show you, and we'll come back after that, right?
Good evening, guys. All of this apparently caused because of a boiler that has frozen, and also because we understand that a panel exploded. But I want you to check out what's happening right here. Over here, we've had some families of inmates that have heard about what's going on standing right in front of the facility. And check this out. Those inmates, you know, we were hearing that banging. It's still happening, and you can still hear it. And those lights that are flashing, we understand are night lights that they are able to buy in the commissary. So this is a developing situation, and last we heard, electricity is not expected to be back on until Monday. Here as inmates at the Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn bang and make noise in their jail cells so they can be heard. Anger and frustration, not just from inmates, but also their loved ones, as well as correctional officers and other employees at the facility.
We have dark spots where we are moving inmates and there's no light. So we're really afraid for the staff member safety as well as the inmates.
The facility has been without electricity, heat, or warm meals since Sunday afternoon. The New York Times reporting temperatures inside during the polar vortex blast this week were as low as 34 degrees.
No one should be in a cell freezing.
The federal prison houses some 1,600 inmates. While it is known for having notorious and dangerous prisoners convicted of serious federal crimes, it also houses people accused of less serious crimes, some of whom are awaiting their bail hearing, others standing trial and haven't even been convicted yet. That's the case for the brother of Tremaya Slade.
Just because you're in jail doesn't mean you're not a human being. You're still a human being. You still deserve the right to not be cold in 12-degree weather.
Elected officials now demanding answers.
This is not only a health issue, but it is also a safety issue for workers and everybody else.
So again, more and more families starting to show up right here outside of this facility. And guys, to add insult to injury, the prisoners inside, the inmates, they haven't been able to call their family members since the outage. Some of these inmates contact their family members every single day, so some families might not even know what is happening inside. We're live in Brooklyn. I'm Cristian Benavides, Pix 11 News.
Officials say power restored to Brooklyn jail that's been without heat for a week. You know I'm going to say that again. Officials say power restored to Brooklyn jail that's been without heat for a week. This story was done today, February 4th, 2019, coming from the Market Watch by Associated Press. This how it reads. New York. Power was restored Sunday night at a federal detention center in New York City, where inmates had been living largely without heat or electricity for the past week, according to a statement from the Federal Bureau of Prisons. Protesters have gathered outside the Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn in recent days, following news report that those housed there have largely been without heat or power for the past week, and also haven't been able to communicate with lawyers or loved ones. Outdoor temperatures have been well below freezing on some recent days, though Sunday was warmer. In its statement, the agency said it was working to restore the facility to normal operations. Earlier Sunday, some demonstrators attempted to enter the facility, and witnesses said guards drove them back with pushes, shoves, and pepper spray. A reporter and photographer for the Associated Press were at the facility when a woman whose son is being detained tried to get into the jail. On Sunday, an inmate was able to crawl through the window of his cell, crawl through the window of his cell, which faces out to the street, to his mother below. The woman, Yvonne Murchison, was crying and upset and tried to get into the facility where visitors had been stopped. "I trade places with him any day. That's my child," she said. She was followed by activists and media into the lobby where visitors had passed through metal detectors. Witnesses said officers used significant force to push the people out, with some of those attempting to come in being pushed to the ground. The AP photographer felt some type of spray and began to have trouble breathing. Those affected were seen washing out their eyes with water or milk. The The Bureau of Prisons have acknowledged that the jail experienced a partial power outage due to a fire in the switch gear room. The Bureau said a new electrical panel is being installed by an outside contractor and work is expected to be completed by Monday. It wasn't clear if that work was completed Sunday night with the restoration of power. They just insist that inmates had hot water for showers and sinks and were getting medication as needed. The jail administration did not return an email seeking comment on the clash Sunday. New York Governor Andrew Cuomo called for an investigation of the circumstance of the loss of heat and electricity by the Federal Department of Justice, saying the situation was a violation of human decency and dignity, and also raises question of potential violations of law. The Democrat said he wanted answers and those responsible held accountable. Prisoners in New York are human beings, Cuomo said. Let's treat them that way. The New York City Liberty Union released a statement Sunday calling on the Bureau of Prisons to ensure that no detainee be subjected to retaliation for peacefully protesting. Today's confrontation between the Bureau of Prisons and family members of people jailed at MDC highlights the desperate need to address the dangerous, inhumane, unlawful conditions inside the facility, NYCLU Executive Director Donna Lieberman said. All right, so what we see is the New York detention center that seemed to had boiler went out and the power went out, and the timing couldn't have been at a worse time. It was going through the vortex again. That was going through the Midwest all the way across the East. Again, as I was saying prior to before playing the video, it was so cold in my damn house, even with having the temperature at about 79, 80, that I still was feeling like frostbite in my feet and my fingertips, right? And so here it was that he was in a facility. Now, those who ever been, been in the counties, right, been locked up in the detention centers, it's kind of like cold steel, it ain't like it's warm in the motherfucker anyway, right? So just imagine here it was with the vortex, and they want to say that it was 34 degrees. Now, that's what they say in there, right? Well, that's what they're saying, right? Now, 32 is freezing, right? So they're trying to make it like it wasn't freezing, right? They kept it right there and say 32 degrees below, 32 degrees is freezing, right? You're starting to freeze. So here it was, not just for a day, not for 2 days, not for 5 days, but a week, 7 whole days, right? That they allowed them, again, had no electricity, right? You heard them on the outside hitting on the windows again, right? So again, there's a lot of stuff that might have transpired that happened up in there. Matter of fact, they even had to say, well, don't, for the CEOs in there not to retaliate for them, again, for their protest, because again, the conditions, right? The conditions that they're in right now. Now, again, the inhumaneness, again, doesn't negate the fact that, again, if you're guilty and you done did something, then that's, again, doing the time, doing the crime. But again, like I said, not everybody that's locked up is always guilty. And we see that on the daily. So, who's responsible for a situation like that in the man? Where's the regular maintenance, right? When you running a facility like that, shouldn't there be some regular maintenance as to, maintaining, making sure, because again, you're dealing with human capacity. Again, even though you're not looking at them, you're looking at, again, let's say the mantra that y'all look at, black people and brown people, right? You look at them not quite human, so you're looking at animals. So where's Peter at? Peter need to be in here because, again, if it was dogs in there, they'd shut that mug down, right? Right? But to being black humans, so again, the dog is a little higher than that. So, and you can take it, right? You have superhuman strength. So 30 to 40 degrees, all right, that's nothing. You can handle it, And so even though they're going to try to now figure out, well, whose fault it is and who's going to be held responsible. Again, if you're saying the boiler went out, right, and you say the power went out, then who could be held for that? That's just, wear and tear of either the boiler, unless that was intentionally done, right? Again, that story will be unfolding as time go on, because again, people who were there will be able to tell from their perspective, from being in it, and other than the story that they're telling and spinning on the outside. So here it was that the parents, again, that still have that kind of good relationship, even though their child may have been going some stuff. You know, you have some, you know, family members like that, child could be wrong, but they're going to be down with them to the end. And they up there trying to, you know, bring some awareness and attention. If it wasn't for that, you probably wouldn't even have heard what you're hearing. And so, you know, for them to have stopped pepper spraying them because of their concerns about what was going on in them, I don't think that was right in itself either, right? And again, you know, under those conditions and people who work in there, again, the criminality aspect, again, somebody has to do that kind of work. But again, that don't mean you have to treat everybody in the same light. And so, again, maybe there'll be some lawsuits coming down the line on some of that, right, unruly incorrectness, right? So, again, let's move on. And I just want to bring that to your attention, that those who may not have heard about what had transpired over there. Now, you know, the Super Bowl happened. Again, I'm not one to have, I haven't watched football in years now, right? I don't watch that shit no more, right? Because, again, times has changed. You know, the games have changed. Just like the NBA, I don't watch. I mean, I used to play. So it's like I used to be very into it, but I gave up because, again, you know, just so much has happened over the last few years that, again, you kind of look at people in certain entertainment and, you know, this realm. It's not kind of being the people that, again, they do what they do for their living, right? And some of them are forced to try to make stances and stuff, but again, they did stand on court because, again, they had the chance. And again, we don't expect somebody to do what you would do based on you being a window shopper on the outside, them being inside. We don't know all the responsibilities and things that they have, so sometimes they can't take the stand. But again, I don't hold them in such that high light as other people might. Right? They become a religion for a lot of people. They can run the stats and know everything about that, but when it comes to the world and stuff, they don't have no idea. So the Super Bowl came. A lot of people were upset about the fact that Gladys Knight went out there and she sung, but then I heard something. I didn't get to see it even to this day right now. I heard that I want to see the clip, which is I read that Bernice King, right, which is the niece, right, Andrew Young, and who was the third person? Well, somebody else they had, right? Had them there as the coin toss. Right, the coin toss, right? And according to what I was being told, somebody said they was looking like, why the fuck are we even here, right? So again, it's like, again, because you're tied into that whole aspect. When they make that call, you got to go out there. You got to go out there and get that money like a pimp to a hoe. Get out there and make that money. Sell this damn subliminal message that we're selling, that everything is all good. And matter of fact, the reason why they was out there and trying to make it like that, and then you didn't see nobody out there kneeling in the court, I don't know. I didn't see it, so I'm just assuming. If I'm wrong, let me know. But this had the story that had broke, so I'm assuming this is why they were off, you know, out there to commemorate, to give validation, and some of the stuff that's being said here. And so let me go ahead and put this together, show you what I'm talking about. Let's see. And so again, when you look at the history again in this country, then you look at the simple fact that, you know, some people will debate whether they say, well, whether the, you know, your president is who they say he is, right? You might say, no, he's not like that. Well, what if, see, when black people say it, it's questionable. But if a white man said it, is it valid? Let's see. So let me play this. Hold on, before that, let me get another PSA in here, right? I'm going to get another one for those who are sitting on your hand, who might be sitting up in here. You let me hold some. Let me get one more reminder, right? That's what we do over here, right? Get a reminder. And get to the story after that. Let's get it.
You know, the first wave of calls for Northam's resignation nationally came from those either running or considering a run for president, including my next guest, who just spent 3 days in Iowa, Democratic Senator Sherrod Brown of Ohio. Senator Brown, welcome back to Meet the Press.
Good to be back. Thank you.
Look, you added your names. You said he's got to go. He doesn't want to go. Let me ask the question this way. Is there anything he could do to convince you he should remain in the public square to lead in the healing?
Well, he should remain in the public square by explaining and talking and working to heal, but he should do it from a position of private citizen. And I agree with Congresswoman Bass and Congressman McEachin. I thought their insights were very important. I think he should resign now. He then can contribute to this dialogue, but as I said, he should do it as a private citizen.
What does it say that something like this is now, folks are now being held accountable for blackface in ways, frankly, that we didn't have that strong of a moral code, I would argue, in our politics until recently. Why do you think that is?
Well, I think this country hasn't dealt well with the issues of race. I mean, we have a president who's a racist, we have.
Let me pause you there. That's just that you believe in his heart he's a racist.
Well, I don't know what in his heart means. I know that he built his political career knowing what he was doing on questioning the legitimacy and the birthplace of the President of the United States. I know early that there have been all kinds of news reports about what he did early in his career on housing. We know, read the new Jim Crow by Michelle Alexander, read The Color of Law about housing discrimination and decades and decades and decades of housing discrimination. And we know that the Trump family, including the now sitting president, played to that and deepened that. So these issues, this is not a RISA. Charlottesville was only a symptom and a more public viewing and outing, if you will, of the president's views about race. I mean, there's just no question about that. We know the president doesn't tell the truth frequently. Yep. We know he lies frequently. And we know of his racist comments and background.
You spent the last couple
and that's not even counting, Chuck. That's not even counting the policies of this administration. We have consent decrees all over this country, including in Cleveland. We have a Justice Department that's turned its back on it. We know about voter suppression. I was Secretary of State of Ohio. My job when I was Secretary of State was to encourage people of all races to vote, especially young people and especially young people of color. And we worked at that. We now have a government that suppresses the vote, and we know what happened in Georgia, and we know what happened in Florida.
One of the ways you've talked about your potential candidacy for president while you were in Iowa, you talk about talking to the working class voters that you thought Democrats had been ignoring. There is a racial component to that conversation as far as some are concerned, that the white working class vote, it's a cultural reason that even though the Democratic policies maybe they agree with, but there's cultural reasons why they're not comfortable with the Democratic Party. How do you bridge that divide? Because it feels like race plays a role in this.
Well, listen to what we've been saying, whether it's in Iowa or when I'm going to South Carolina in a couple of weeks, or our hometown of Cleveland, and where Connie and I live in a racially mixed neighborhood, of course. And when you talk about the dignity of work, I'm talking about all workers, whether you swipe a badge or punch a clock, whether you're working on salary or working for tips, whether you shower before work or after work, whether you're raising kids, and always recognizing that women and people of color have even more challenges in the workplace in terms of wages, in terms of benefits, in terms of schedules, where they arrange childcare and their employer then changes their hours that they're working. So the dignity of work is clearly all workers in this country, and if it's a pitch to the broad numbers of people in this country that aren't treated well, that work hard every day and simply aren't getting ahead. If you love your country, you fight for the people who make it work across all races, and that's the theme of my campaign. If I do run for president, it's certainly the theme of the dignity of work.
You know, you said something else to Yahoo News earlier this week. You were talking about your election in Ohio, your recent re-election. You said, there are 88 counties in Ohio. I won 16 of them, and I won the state by 7 points. But in many of those other 72 counties, we got emasculated. There weren't even close. there's this awful divide between the metro areas and the smaller towns. What did you mean by emasculated there? And what is the divide? What is the divide?
That may have not been exactly the right word. Maybe massacred, maybe
Okay.
blown away. What did President Obama say when, after the 10 elections, he had a really good word about how we didn't do so well in some states? I mean, it's one of the reasons in Iowa we started in 15 below zero weather. We started in Cresco, Iowa, and went to Clear Lake and went to Mason City and went to smaller towns because Wall Street overlooks bypasses those towns, and state and federal government just ignores those towns, like my hometown of Mansfield. And those towns are often racially mixed. This isn't a diverse metro area versus a white rural area. These are small towns that are hurt from globalization, hurt from a tax policy.
Right.
In Trump's the president's tax law, you shut down production in Dubuque, where we were this week and had a great turnout.
Yep.
You shut down production in Dubuque and move overseas, you get a 50% off coupon on your taxes. That's the problem. That's what we're doing to these small cities in rural areas, whether it's Iowa or Ohio or California.
I want to talk about some of the issues that could divide Democrats a bit. One of them is the issue of universal health care. And you've got some that are calling for Medicare for all. You got Michael Bloomberg, who almost seems to share a little bit of your frustration when it comes to overpromising. Take a listen to what Michael Bloomberg said in responding to a whole bunch of these ideas.
I'm a little bit tired of listening to things that are pie in the sky that we never are going to pass or never going to afford. I think it's just disingenuous to promote those things.
You seem to say that you were asked about Medicare for all, and while you said kind things about it, you seem to express a similar frustration. We talk about it, make no progress. That's a mistake. How do you campaign on incrementalism when some voters want big, bold change that probably is difficult to follow through with?
Well, nobody's accused me in my career of being an incrementalist. I have always fought for bold change. I live in a state, Ohio. I represent a state where Trump's promises of bringing back jobs and reindustrialization and opening up new factories have clearly just fallen flat. I mean, he's done nothing on these promises. So I know a whole lot about a president over-promising and breaking those promises and selling out and betraying workers. Let me answer the question this way. I was in Dubuque. A woman came up to me, early 60s. She told us that she told Connie and me her husband had died of cancer. She had quit her job to take care of him. She is very anxious about what happens with her health care now. So I want to expand Medicare. I'm for universal coverage. I promised in my first congressional race I'd pay my own insurance until Congress passed it. I did for years pay my own insurance. Connie and I are now on the Obamacare exchanges with millions of other people getting our insurance. But I have helped to write with Senator Whitehouse of Rhode Island, the public option, and we've worked for Medicare for all. I want to help people quickly. I want to pass Medicare at 55 or even 50 so she can get coverage and her life can improve and she can have that anxiety allayed so she can have a better life with her kids and her grandkids. That's what I want to see done.
All right, Senator Brown, unfortunately I have to leave it there. Much appreciate you coming on, sharing your views, and we hope to see you first when you make your final decision. Thank you, Senator.
All right, thank you for that.
Hey, NBC News fans, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel.
Our team is set up and ready to go on this Friday, and we're going to start with President Trump up at Bedminster, putting himself right in the middle of the culture wars again, reigniting his feud with the NFL after several players protested in preseason games last night. You're seeing some of the video. The president tweeting just a few hours ago saying the NFL players are at it again, taking a knee when they should be standing proudly for the national anthem. Numerous players from different teams wanted to show their outrage at something that most of them are unable to define. They make a fortune doing what they love. Be happy, be cool is the message from the president. Fans are paying so much money to watch and enjoy. Football game is no place to protest. Most of that money goes to the players. Anyways, he continues. Let me get over to Jeff Bennett, who is live for us there in New Jersey. It comes, Jeff, as all of this goes down. This is not new from the president. What's new is that this is the NFL preseason. He is picking up this culture war fight, even as there are some major policy issues that the president is dealing with. And a former White House insider, Omarosa, we talked about her on this program yesterday, is now alleging the president used racist, inflammatory language.
Yeah, there's a lot happening here, Hallie. And look, the first thing to know is that the NFL is back, and so too is the president's crusade against these player protests. So he was apparently reacting to what happened last night at a preseason game. He had a couple of players there on the field take a knee during the anthem. A few others raised their fist. But when the president tweets where he says, they wanted to show their outrage at something that most of them are unable to define, we should be clear that the players have been crystal clear from the start that they were not protesting the anthem. What they're demonstrating against, they say, is racial injustice and police shootings of unarmed black men. So if you ask the question, why does the president keep returning to this issue? Well, people close to him tell me, and I'm sure you have this in your own reporting, that he views this as a political winner, whereas issues such as tax cuts, tariffs might not be as relevant and resonant for his base. This cultural issue certainly is. This is the president's view. So it's one of the reasons why he talks time and time again about immigration and, yes, about this issue of NFL protests. Take a look at what he said in the past about this.
Wouldn't you love to see one of these NFL owners, when somebody disrespects our flag, to say, get that son of a bitch off the field right now, out, he's fired. He's fired!
You have to stand proudly for the national anthem. Well, you shouldn't be playing, you shouldn't be there. Maybe you shouldn't be in the country.
Thank you for checking out our YouTube channel. Why don't you subscribe? It's really easy. Just click on that button down there. And for more news from MSNBC, click on any of these videos here for the latest interviews and highlights. You can get more videos from MSNBC with our newsletters. Head over to msnbc.com/newsletters to sign up.
Trump says feud with NFL is over. Claims many from league have thanked him for criminal justice bill. You know I'm going to say that again. Trump says feud with NFL is over. Claims many from league have thanked him for criminal justice bill. This story was done in the Market Watch. Today's date, February the 4th, 2019. And this is how it reads. President criticized blown call in NFC championship game. West Palm Beach, Florida, President Donald Trump claimed that a lot of people from the NFL have been calling and thanking him for signing legislation addressing concerns with the criminal justice system. Trump also said during an on-interview broadcast Sunday that he and NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell have set aside their differences over players kneeling during the national anthem. Trump relentlessly criticized the practice as being disrespectful to the American flag, and he faulted Goodell for not doing enough to stop it. Players saw kneeling during the Star-Spangled Banner as a prime opportunity to heighten public awareness of how minorities are treated by the criminal justice system. The president pivoted to the new criminal justice law when he was asked if he thought the players who knelt had a point and whether he was sensitive to the concerns that most victims of police violence are black. Trump said the legislation was the product of years of effort dating to before he took office. And I got it done, and I've been, really, a lot of people in the NFL have been calling and thanking me for it. Trump said in the interview broadcast during CBS Super Bowl pregame show, they have been calling and thanking, that people have been trying to get that taken care of, and it's now signed into law. The law gives judges more discretion when sentencing drug offenders and will boost prisoners' rehabilitation. Trump then sued to his stance of kneeling during the anthem without addressing the original question. I think that when you want to protest, I think that's great. But I don't think you do it at the stake of our flag. At the sake of our national anthem, absolutely, he said. The White House did not respond to email requests for information on which NFL figures have reached out to the president. Asked whether he and Goodell had set aside their differences over kneeling, Trump said, I think so. You have to respect our flag and our country. I want that as president. And I want that as a citizen, and I have a very good relationship. Trump viewed Sunday's matchup between New England Patriots and the Los Angeles Rams for the comfort of his private golf club in West Beach. Upon arrival, he and his wife, Melania, were treated to a mini concert by the Florida Atlantic University Marching Band. Trump said in the interview that he expected the Patriots to win a 6th Lombardi Trophy and visit the White House. The team is owned and coached by his friend Bob Kraft, Bill Belichick, respectively. He credited great chemistry for the team's success. Trump also commented in the interview about the New Orleans Saints lost to Rams in January NFC title game. Game officials failed to call interference or roughness penalties when a Rams player delivered a helmet-to-helmet hit on the Saints receiver in the game's crucial final minutes. The Rams won in overtime, advancing to meet the Patriots at the Super Bowl in Atlanta, while the league acknowledged a blown no call. A federal judge later rejected a legal challenge by the two Saints ticket holders seeking a do-over playoff game. Trump blamed the outcome on a bad call. It's a shame that we couldn't have seen that game finish out, because that was a beautiful pass, and it was a perfect pass. And he was not just interfered with, he was really hit hard, the president said. So it's a shame that that had to happen. Who really knows what would have happened in the end? He said that the Saints would have been in a good position to have won the conference title. But it is what it is. It was a bad call. I don't think anybody denies it. It was a bad call. Trump said maybe it was a terrible call. All right. So we see that in the beginning, you see the very first video, see Senator, I think his name is Sherrod Brown. And you heard as he said that President Donald Trump was a racist, and that he laid out his reasons for what he said, looking at some of the policies and the redlining about him holding his own places that had dwelled with people of African Americans or Black Americans in particular. And how a lot of the things that been set up are really discriminatory towards people of color. And that, when you see, again, as he talked about with Obama and being the catalyst about trying to get the birthers, right, when they're going for the birth certificate and stuff like that. So, again, he was laying the groundwork as to what we're going at now, again, because the Super Bowl just happened. Right? And based on what all that had transpired, again, according to making acknowledgement that, again, that the reason why they were kneeling had to do with the injustices that was happening with people of color, especially when it comes to the criminality. So, again, he ended up signing a criminal justice bill. According to what he said, that many people in the NFL were congratulating him. But, again, it's speculative because, again, didn't name drop. So, again, you have to speculate to assume that the players were the ones that were doing it. But, again, it could just be the ownership that's doing it, right? And so, again, after all that had transpired, to still be like, well, them protesting and doing what they're doing. First of all, he even mentioned and said that the fact that they didn't really understand what it is that they were doing. Right? So that's just downplaying the fact that you're not smart enough to understand that, like, you don't know what's going on, because, again, just because you're getting paid, you're living a little better than most field Negroes, right? That you don't have no connection to them, so you don't really understand. As if, like, again, people don't look at the simple fact that being a Black American in this country has something to do with the lineage to the land. Not just because you do wear the melanin or you are classified as African American. Doesn't make you less. It's just the fact that there's a distinction between that and that. And so when those who, again, in positions, having a platform, stand out, it brings attention to it, and then that's the only way you make changes. And so because it gave a black eye, according to them, because that was something they didn't want to see, so it drug out. So, originating with Kaepernick's stance, and Eric, I can't think of his last name, and this has become, again, because election is coming for 2020. So it would be incumbent of you, again, because, again, Black people will become the swing vote, right? We'll be the one that, again, as you see in the black corner, the ADOS or the DOS, which is making a movement to galvanize and having their people to collective, having a, move as to if somebody is going to petition or let's say, if you, I guess you ought to say petition, because you're going to have to lay out what it is that you're going to agree to, what you're trying to advocate for, in order to be, getting the vote. And that's ruffling a lot of people's feathers, because again, they've been so used to getting without have to giving, other than a chicken dinner, right, or a little speech or something like that, or some promises. And so we see that he has, again, according to the article, it wasn't something that he actually did. He said it already had been there, just the only thing nobody had was signed it, right? So it was there when Obama was there. He didn't do it either, right? We don't know, again, how far back it goes, but again, he's making it seem that he completed by signing it, putting it into action. Again, we're not fully sure what all that is yet. But again, it's just being done prior to them doing the Super Bowl. Then you see that's why they had Bernice King and Andrew Young and them out there, because again, it was a culmination of what's so supposedly that there was now agreements that the feud is now over. So again, as it said about Roger Goodell, he snapped them because again, Roger Goodell would be considered like the overseer, the cracker. He'd be the cracker on the plantation, that he didn't crack the whip hard enough to get them out of that stance and get them back into the stance they wanted to. So that was why him and Roger Goodell fell out. But I guess now that since this bill has been signed, or legislative has been signed, that everything has worked itself out to the betterment that he believes of his presidential presidency, right? History, when you look at, again, when you talk about the Roman history, they use the athletes as the ones that would be, again, because they inspire young people. They make people, they defy some of the regular human aspects of life, and they defy it, and makes it awe-inspiring, and it makes you want to be them. So they use them as ways to propagate certain agendas and mindsets through the athletes. So that's why you don't see a lot of them advocating for the populace, right, or the population, or the lumpen proletariats, because as you heard Donald Trump said in that article, that they have a good life for them that are watching, so you don't really have no affiliation, but that's where they come from. But they say, well, since you now live like that, why do you care? Why again? So it's like, just forget about them, right? And so we want to commend those who did do what they had done, and those other ones, well, again, it's kind of like what's happened with the DOS situation. I won't talk about that more until we do the next one. But bringing that story again, not so much about what transpired with the Super Bowl, but the point is, the reason why you seen what happened with Gladys Knight and all that out there is because they had this bill signed, for those who didn't know. So we're going to move on. Now we're going to get to, I want to do this because since, blackface has been, the thing that everybody's been using lately. Been seeing that a lot in the news about this blackface. And there's a history to the blackface, again, because a lot of them try to act as if they don't know, right? And some of you may not know. And the systemicness of why they do what they do. But again, now that you have people in who are political in positions, again, of authority and have an influence as to legislation and law, they seem to be, want to jump and do something. So the article will talk about the difference between, okay, if we can do this for blackface, then what about black bodies? Is there no equivalency to that? Or the blackface is okay, but black bodies is not? And there's a sister who wrote this article, and I will read that. But first, let me play this, and then we'll come right back, right? So let's get it.
As you may have heard, NBC Today host Megyn Kelly's show was canceled this past week following her on-air remarks expressing acceptance of blackface. It's a racist show business practice most of us thought was long gone. But as Maurice Dubois is about to tell us, blackface has a long history in our country. And we caution you, his report unavoidably includes many offensive and disturbing images.
It happens all too frequently, often at Halloween, but not exclusively.
They thought it was a joke, but it really just was not funny at all.
For example, 2 years ago in Maplewood, New Jersey.
Her daughter posted this photo of herself and a friend in blackface.
The two girls had no idea what blackface was or the history of it.
The history of blackface is long and complex and deeply ingrained in our culture.
Who was that lady I saw you with this afternoon? That was no lady. That was my wife.
Even Bugs Bunny and Elmer Fudd blacked up.
Fantastic, isn't it?
For more than 100 years, white and then black performers wore dark makeup and created not only a popular theatrical form, but stereotypes that are still with us today.
This makes you uncomfortable, doesn't it?
Absolutely. It does make me feel uncomfortable to talk about these things because they are incredibly disturbing and revolting.
Eric Lott, a professor at the Graduate Center of the City University of New York, says blackface represents a strange mix of envy, fascination, desire, and fear.
Explain the fear part to me. What are these white performers, what are these white people afraid of?
They're afraid of black groups, mobs, rising up and taking the power.
Minstrel shows began in the 1830s, and white performers used burnt cork or later black grease paint. Minstrelsy eventually became the most popular form of entertainment in the country.
Ah, yes.
I asked Margot Jefferson, the Pulitzer Prize-winning critic, to look at some images from the New York Public Library.
The shininess of the black against the big white clown's mouth, the hat, the overlong tailcoat, mocking. It always gives me the jolt that racist history does. Blackface is so tied to comedy, to people enjoying themselves, to people having fun, that rattles you still more.
Well, Mr. Tambo, you seem to be enjoying yourself this evening.
Enjoying myself? I sure is.
White minstrel performers claimed that what they did on stage was based on their perceptions of how black people lived.
Some of this came out of a genuine fascination with the music, the songs, the dances, the performance styles of black people.
But it's also where Jump Jim Crow was born, along with other characters depicted as lazy, lying, or buffoonish. Remember, this was all happening before the Civil War.
Slavery was all about creating visions, types, stereotypes of an entire race of people as subhuman in every way.
By the 1860s, African Americans began using blackface on stage.
Why on earth would a black performer put on blackface and demean him or herself?
Look, this is the 19th century. They had limited options. They were expected to.
Why?
Because it made the audiences comfortable. You can be fascinated, you can be excited, but you can always feel superior.
In effect, the black makeup on a black performer became a theatrical mask with many layers of meaning. Professor Eric Lott.
The mask, I think, says to white audiences, you have nothing to fear. Go ahead, enjoy yourself. To black audiences, I think any number of things might have been communicated, like, can you believe that these people are making me put on this mask so they will be entertained? You know, in other words, there's a kind of winking to the black audience. But it gave black performers access to the stage.
One of the biggest black stars to come out of the minstrel tradition was Burt Williams, who wore blackface from vaudeville to Broadway.
It's clear that he was a genius of a performer.
But how did he reconcile performing in this demeaning art form?
He was very melancholy about it. He knew it was necessary for his career, as all other black performers knew it.
Minstrelsy on stage basically died out in the 1920s, but blackface lived on in the movies.
I'd walk a million miles for one of your smiles.
In 1927, Al Jolson starred in the pioneering talking picture The Jazz Singer, playing a young man who prefers singing popular music rather than his family's traditional Hebrew prayers.
West, but I know where the sun shines best.
I don't want to look at it. What reaction do you get?
I totally understand.
Wait a minute. I don't like the way he said that.
In the Our Gang comedies of the 1930s, Spanky appeared in blackface.
Buckwheat, did you say Spanky was in a lot of trouble? Yes, sir.
The gag here is that the gang doesn't realize that that's Spanky in blackface until they actually see Buckwheat.
Hiya, Buckwheat. Hiya, Buckwheat.
So the gist of it is that you put blackface makeup on anyone and they become black.
And that's supposed to be hilarious.
And it's supposed to be really funny.
When he grows up.
And it goes on. During the golden age of the Hollywood musical, Judy Garland.
When he walks down the street, folks will say, pleased to meet Mr. Franklin D. Roosevelt Jones.
Bing Crosby.
That's why we celebrate this blessed February day. Abraham.
Fred Astaire, and many others, all blacked up. It's still in the culture.
It is too easy, I think, simply to dismiss the history of blackface as that racist stuff. And most of us are better than that. I don't think most of us are better than that. We are that. That's what we are.
You know, some people say in order to move forward, we need to put this stuff behind us, as painful, as just upsetting that it may be.
Well, you know, any form of history that gets suppressed or repressed or erased out, it comes back to haunt. What has to happen now is a discussion, an acknowledgement of this charged, complicated, painful history.
Policies that harm black bodies deserve the same outrage as blackface. You know I'm going to say that again. Policies that harm black bodies deserve the same outrage as blackface. This story was done in The Guardian, February the 3rd, 2019, written by Shanita Hubbard. And this is how it reads. Racism and bigotry are woven into the fabrics of this nation. Dismissing this notion or pretending that progress made with social inequality negates the point. Is intellectually dishonest at best. Without question, racism is fully presented in America. Yet it appears the impetus to publicly demand accountability for racism is largely commenced by blatant examples, rather than practices and policies that directly harm people of color. The recent conversations around Virginia Governor Ralph Northam fully illustrates this point. A photo from 1984 yearbook shows a man in blackface standing next to a person dressed as a member of the Ku Klux Klan. It was made public on Friday. In response, the governor simply declared that he was in the photo, though he did not say which man he was. The following day, he said he was not in the photo, but mentioned that he once wore a dark shoe polish on his face as part of a Michael Jackson costume. Unsurprisingly, the backlash was swift, with Republicans and Democrats calling for his resignation, and with good cause. The blackface picture is not only transparently racist, it is another painful reminder of how normalized this behavior is. In 1984, this picture was included in a yearbook. Northam said he had never seen the yearbook before Friday. If he had, he presumably would never have imagined it would have political ramifications. Bipartisan outrage, immediate public acknowledgement of racism must extend beyond the images of blackface. This absolutely warrants the public outcry that it is receiving, and demanding our leaders be held accountable for their actions is the mark of a healthy democracy. But if the litmus test for accountability is transparent racism, then the same vigor must be applied to policies and practices and the politicians who impose them. Bipartisan outrage and immediate public acknowledgement of racism must extend beyond images of blackface. The same citizens and politicians who boldly acknowledge that Northam should be held accountable should join the group of people who are ignored when publicly addressing other aspects of our political landscape that are racist and detrimental. Voter suppression not only meets this same standard, it threatens democracy itself. Yet it has reportedly occurred several times within recent elections, to less outrage from politicians and even some private citizens. An investigation conducted by the Associated Press indicates that since 2012, in his position as Georgia's Secretary of State, Brian Kemp canceled more than 1 million voter registrations. Kemp, the Republican opponent of Democrat Stacey Abrams, in the 2018 gubernatorial election, also froze 53,000 registrations. A huge portion of those belong to African American voters. Many were unaware their registration was on hold. 2017, the AP said Kemp canceled 670,000 registrations. Asked about this, he called it voter roll maintenance. Given that many of those impacted by this maintenance were African Americans, this act can be viewed more as a form of voter suppression. After a tumultuous and historic election, Kemp became governor by a slim margin. Voter suppression silences voices and systematically targets people of color in an attempt to strip them of power. In Republican states, voter suppression also appears to be done preemptively. When the population of communities of color began to rise, according to census estimates, Texas has experienced a large growth in the Hispanic population. In 2010, the state had 9.7 million Hispanics. In 2017, it was 11.2 million. While the population of white Texans had only increased by approximately 500,000 people to 11.9 million, it is projected that by 2022, Texas will be a majority Hispanic. Perhaps this is a factor in the state's recent announcement that it will cut 95,000 people from the voters' roll because they don't seem to be citizens. The League of United Latin American Citizens has filed suit against Texas Secretary of State David Whitley, claiming a violation of the Voting Rights Act and an attempt to deter Latinos from voting. From Texas to Georgia, claims of voter suppression are not uncommon. Voter suppression impacts the abilities of marginalized communities to fully participate in the democratic process upon which this nation prides itself. It silences voices and systematically targets people of color in an attempt to strip them of power, makes them more susceptible to living with the ramifications of policy decisions that could disproportionately harm them. It is by all accounts racist and harmful. Yet the public outcry and demand to hold those responsible accountable are not nearly as loud as the outrage about politicians apparently in blackface. Holding Governor Northam accountable and demanding his resignation is more than fair. In fact, a zero-tolerance policy around racism should be the standard. I just hope this becomes more of a practice with politicians who were smart enough to avoid evidence of blackface, but still impose policies that harm black and brown bodies. All right, so they had a video that talked about the history of blackface, right? And you see that there was a white dude there that was the interview, and was showing the history of what transpired. Now again, as being a descendant of slaves of this land, and we had to endure, again, as they talked about, this was kind of like limited opportunities, and so a lot of our ancestors who tried to get into the business, this is the venue they had to go through. But prior to them getting in, it was already being an industry, and they were already stereotyping based on their perspective. And those stereotypes in this country has still, to this day, are still prevalent. So when he had the conversation with the white man in there, you see him talks about, well, what is the blackface representative of? What is the coreness of the belief of white people when it comes to this blackface? And he said that it was envy, right? Fascination, desire, and fear. I'm going to say that again. He said that blackface in the representative and the core of it is about envy, fascination, desire, and fear. So the black man asked him, said, well, when you say fear, what are you talking about? It says that black people, right, or a group of black people rising up and taking power. Let me say that again. Black groups rising up and taking power. So when we see these representation of this blackness, it's kind of like a fascination, right? A envy, a jealousy, right? Because they see in the tides changing. And this is their only way of showing, again, because, again, they bred us to have this and bred it, and those who have been in the historical aspect of this country to mock us, right? Enjoying their entertaining by mocking us, right? And that was entertainment. But it's kind of a nervous jealousy now, right? Because, see, let's just say in the black corner of the internet that those who are out here who are advocating for the reparations, the making amends with monetary and other aspects, right? Seems to be something that they are using the border, right? They're trying to put people in positions who, again, they already used an individual who looked like, talked like, walked like, wasn't cut from, but had a wife like, and that was sufficient enough for us. But Gen X now is in the control. Gen X is the one that they tried to knock out with the crack. Gen X is the one that came from the children that was of the ones of the 60s, right? And there seem to be the ones that you're seeing out here. Those are the ones that's pretty much doing the leading. And they're not compromising. And the children behind them are the children of Generation X. So, it seems to be a movement out here that is moving with a face like a black face that has put in the fear, right, of them trying to gain power. So you see again, Corley, blackface versus black bodies. We see that again when you're talking about legislatively, right? You see that there's voter suppressions. That there was so much, again, when you talk about the election that took place with the Sister Abrams, that they was doing the voter suppression. It was knocking out a lot of black Americans from voting, that the individual ended up calling it what? Voter call maintenance. So it's a fear of the rise, again, as the Planet of the Apes, and they had been doing them sequels. And if you just go back again, going back to 68 when they originally did it to where we're at now, right? The subliminal messages. That, again, the alternative for them is to use immigration. That even to that point, as you heard Tom Brokaw say a few days ago when I did that video, that he said that they were to assimilate. They need to fit in more and be more like them, right? To acclimate and be more white. To the fact that he said, matter of fact, the conscience of their mind is that they don't really want brown babies. They want white babies. To the fact that you see that it says that in 2022 that Texas will be a Hispanic state. So they see the dwindling of their power, right? And you're seeing the mocking, the nervousness, right? The fear that the black groups are trying to obtain power. And so to have these stories keep reappearing and about, well, this one here in the photo yearbook was a face, and you had a teacher who was sending around showing the students of his blackface, and I wore it to do with the Michael Jackson, and all these things are in representation of the fear of what's taking place here. And so they need an alternative. They need somebody to represent for their cause, even though they may appear like oneself. So it's kind of like putting on a black face, right? See, when they put the black face on, it was actually a white person underneath the, whether it be oil grease or the cork, burnt cork, right? But it was a white person under there. So what are you saying, Mr. Blow? Well, let me show you something. Let me show you something, because again, we got to ask ourselves. They need an individual who they think they can pass that make us say, well, you know, you fooled us once, right? Those who participated in that, but you're not going to fool me again. So they think, well, if I gave you the mayor, if I give it to you in this way, maybe this will work. Now, again, to each his own. I'm not telling you whether to or not. I'm just saying, listen to what's being said. Do your research to find out who the individuals are. What are they advocating for us, right? So let me show you this right quick. Again, let me go ahead and give a little, you know, again, got to pay the bills, right? Got to get you to do some things for me when it's necessary. And so, which one do I got? I don't got the other one. Where my other one at? I think this one up here. Is that it? Maybe this is it here. Let's see. So let's see if this is it here. All right, so play these and be right back after this.
I feel a great responsibility. I sit in that chair as a member of the Senate Judiciary Committee and as the only second black woman in the history of the United States Senate to serve in the United States Senate.
How can you not remember whether or not you had a conversation about Robert Mueller or his investigation with anyone at that law firm? This investigation has only been going on for so long, sir. So
right,
please
I'm not
answer
sure.
the question.
I'm just trying to think. Do I know anyone who works at that firm? I might know.
Have you had? That's not my question. My question is, have you had a conversation with anyone at that firm about that investigation?
I would like to know.
It's a really specific question.
What if there's?
I think you're thinking of someone and you don't want to tell us. My role in all of these committee hearings is to try and get to the truth and get the American people to get answers to the questions they ask. I am concerned that with that nominee, there were so many questions that went unanswered. Questions that range from, do you believe that Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act is constitutional? To, do you believe that it is constitutional to bar people from entering our country based on race, based on religion? Questions about the constitutionality of Roe versus Wade. So all of that is at stake. And his inability to answer very specific questions is deeply troubling. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to be recognized to ask a question before we proceed. The committee received just last night, less than 15 hours ago, 42,000 pages of documents that we have not had an opportunity to review
or read or analyze.
You're out of order. I'll proceed.
We cannot possibly move forward, Mr. Chairman.
I
with this
extend a
hearing.
very warm.
I am here standing on the shoulders of so many people, and I am here and have a duty, as far as I'm concerned, to speak the voice of so many people who are not in that room and have historically never been in that room. And I take that responsibility very seriously. There are certain people who will bring up certain issues and the others don't bring up those issues, like issues that relate to race. It's not that other people don't care about those issues, but I feel the need personally, and I'll speak for myself, I feel the need to always speak about the issues that must be spoken. Again, no matter how uncomfortable it makes everybody, but because that's about speaking truth. I am thrilled about all these black women running. Everyone from Ayanna Pressley to Johanna Hayes to Lucy McBath to, of course, Stacey Abrams. They are just doing it. They're winning. They're winning. And so many of them have never run before. Ann Vangelis and Andrew Gillum. It is so exciting. And you know, I know that feeling that they have because it takes an incredible amount of courage for each one of them to have decided to run and then to put themselves out there and to be winning. It means they are working so hard. It means they are the best person for the job. People have told them, it's not your time, it's not your turn, nobody like you has done this before, it's gonna be hard work, you can't win. I've been there. And what I love about all these candidates is they are not listening to that.
When are you running for president?
I am here to announce to you that I am going to do everything in my power to make sure that we win this 2018 election cycle. And I would urge everybody else to do the same.
I am who I am. Kamala Harris defines herself as American. You know I'm going to say that again. I am who I am. Kamala Harris defines herself as American. This story was done in NDTV News, February the 2nd, 2019, and this is how it reads. In early 2010, an Indian American couple hoisted a fundraiser in their elegant Pacific Heights home for Kamala Harris, then a Democratic candidate for California Attorney General. Harris has been San Francisco's high-profile district attorney for more than 6 years. But Deepak Puri and Shireen Punian had only recently learned that Harris was, as Punian said, one of our peeps, a woman whose mother was an Indian immigrant. They had always assumed Harris was African American, and so did most of the 60 or 70 Indian American community leaders at the event, many of whom asked Puri and Punian why they had been invited. At least half of them didn't know she was Indian, said Pun, a business executive and political activist. Harris, 54, now a U.S. Senator and 2020 Democratic presidential candidate, would be several firsts in the White House. The first woman, the first African American woman, the first Indian American, and the first Asian American. The daughter of two immigrants, her father came from Jamaica. She would also be the second biracial president after Barack Obama. Obama's soul-searching quest to explore his identity as the son of a white mother from Kansas and a Kenyan father who is largely absent from his life was well documented in his autobiography. But when asked in an interview if she had wrestled with similar introspections about race, ethnicity, and identity, Harris didn't hesitate. No, she said flatly. Harris stressed that she doesn't compare herself to Obama, and she prefers that others don't either. She wants to be measured on her own merits. She says she has not spent much time dwelling on how to categorize herself. So much so, she said that When I first ran for office, that was one of the things that I struggled with, which is that you are forced through that process to define yourself in what way that you fit nearly into the compartment that other people have created. My point was, I am who I am. I'm good with it. You might need to figure it out, but I'm fine with it, she said. Harris' background in many ways embodies the cultural fluid, racially blended society that is second nature in California's Bay Area and is increasingly common across the United States. She calls herself simply an American and says she has been fully comfortable with her identity from an early age. She credits that largely to a Hindu immigrant single mom who adopted black culture and immersed her daughters in it. Harris grew up embracing her Indian culture, but living in a proudly African-American life. My mother understood very well that she was raising 2 black daughters, Harris writes in her recently published autobiography. The truth we hold, she knew that her adopted homeland would see Maya and me as black girls, and she was determined to make sure we would grow into confident, proud black women. Her mother, Kamala, was keenly attracted to the civil rights movement and the African-American culture of her new home in the 1960s and 70s. At first, she marched in protest with her black husband, then along with the girls after they divorced when Harris was very young. She brought her daughters home to India for visits. She cooked Indian food for them, and the girls often wore Indian jewelry. But Harris worshiped at an African-American church, went to a preschool with posters of Frederick Douglass and Harriet Tubman on the wall, attended civil rights marches in a stroller, and was bused with other black kids to an elementary school in a wealthier white neighborhood. When it was time for college, she moved across the country to Washington to attend the historical black Howard University. Her Indian culture, she held on to that, said Sharon McGaffey, 67, an African-American woman who has known Harris and her sister Maya since they were toddlers living in Berkeley, California. But I think they grew up as black children who are now black women. There's no question about that. As Harris' political profile has risen outside her home region, she will face pressure to discuss her heritage from a broader electorate seeking to fully understand her and politically connect Indian Americans who feel she has not previously put as much focus on her South Asian roots. In her years in the public eye, 7 years as San Francisco District Attorney and 6 years as California Attorney General before her election to the Senate in 2016, Harris tended to stress issues over her personal biography. Harris in the interview said that was because I'm not about me, it's about the people I represent. She said political campaigns, especially for president, requires candidates to explain their background so voters can figure out why you do what you do. So while she was raised not to talk about myself, she said that it was why she wrote her book to lay out the details of her heritage and career. I appreciate that there is that desire that people have to have context, and I want to give people context, she said. Harris hasn't tried to shape perceptions of her identity as much as she has simply accepted that most people see her as black, said Robert Smith, a recently retired professor of political science at San Francisco State University who specializes in African-American politics. She has not used it politically, Smith said. She has not avoided it. She just kind of said it and moved on. I'm this, I'm that. Now let's move on and talk about the death penalty or whatever the issue is of the day. Smith and Harris, blackness was never ambiguous, and she didn't feel the need to trumpet it. Her lack of public focus on her heritage has left many people, even in her home state, unaware of her multiracial background. Most people assume she is African American, and even some friends didn't know that she was also Indian. I had no idea, said Matthew Davis, a San Francisco lawyer and classmate of Harris at the University of California Hastings College of the Law, where they graduated in 1989. Even though we were good friends, I never really heard her talk too much about her personal life, said Davis. who also worked with her in the San Francisco City Attorney's Office before she was elected district attorney. It was only when she was sworn in as a district attorney in 2004, 15 years after they graduated from law school, that Davis learned Harris was half Indian. She introduced me to her mother, and that was the first time I knew. Davis said it was a sense of pride for her, but I didn't get the sense that it was the way she defined herself. Even now, Harris still doesn't seem fully at ease discussing her personal heritage. In her first campaign stop after announcing for president on Good Morning America on Martin Luther King Jr.'s Day, Harris appeared on her old Howard campus to take questions. "You're African American, but you're also Indian American," a reporter said. "Indeed," she replied. "How do you describe yourself? Do you read my book? How do I describe myself? I describe myself as a proud American." She said it with a smile, but with an end-of-conversation firmness. Leah Williams, a San Francisco lawyer who has been friends with Harris since the early 1990s, said Harris inherited a strong sense of self from a mother who raised two daughters as a single immigrant mother. "She's not a person who doesn't contemplate herself or her identity," Williams said in the interview, "but there are just people who get up in the morning and look in the mirror and know who they are." Williams, who took her children to Washington to attend Harris' Senate swearing-in ceremony in 2017, said Harris was centered and anchored because she grew up in a house with two other strong women who were role models. Growing up, they could all look at each other and see themselves in each other, Williams said. Harris agreed that her upbringing was filled with pride and nurturing that gave her a solid grounding. "I'm no different than anybody else," she said. "I'm not suggesting that I don't have the doubts, and whatever that any normal person has, but I don't have any doubts about who I am ethnically or racially." Harris has often spoken of her mother as Tamil from Chennai in southeast India as her inspiration, and she writes about it extensively in her book. Gopalan graduated from college in India at 19, then moved to California in 1959 and earned a PhD from the University of California at Berkeley. There she met and married Donald J. Harris, who is now an emeritus professor of economics at Stanford University. The elder Harris did not respond to a request for comment. After their divorce, Harris visited her father's family in Jamaica and stayed in touch with him. But she credited her mother, a noted cancer researcher and civil rights activist who died in 2009, with being most responsible for shaping us into the women we would become. On a visit to India as a child, Harris was deeply influenced by her grandfather, a high-ranking government official who had fought for Indian independence. But while she had a strong awareness and appreciation for Indian culture, she writes her mother raised her in an African-American world. From almost the moment she arrived from India, she chose and was welcomed to and enveloped into the black community. Harris writes, it was the foundation of her new American life. Sharon McGaffey's mother, Regina Shelton, ran the preschool that Harris and her sister attended because Harris' mother traveled regularly for her work as a cancer scientist. The girls would regularly stay over at McGaffey's house 2 doors down on a quiet street in Berkeley. Shelton became like a mother to Harris, mother and grandmother to Harris. Gaffey said the Harris girls would regularly accompany her family to the 23rd Avenue Church of God in Ocala, California, an African-American Protestant congregation. Their mother eagerly encouraged them to go, but did not attend herself, McGaffey said. Then Harris was sworn into office as an AG and senator. She did so with her hand on the Bible that Shelton carried with her to church every Sunday. She has always been engaged in African-American politics, community struggles, community organizations, and life, said Karen V. Clopton, a lawyer and former judge in San Francisco who had been a friend of Harris for more than 2 decades. Harris' college choice marked a notable contrast from the rest of her family. Her parents both earned PhD from UC Berkeley, and her sister went to UC Berkeley and Stanford Law School. Harris opted for Howard, one of the country's most prestigious historical black colleges or schools. She said that was largely because her hero, trailblazing lawyer and Supreme Court Justice Thurgood Marshall, went there. As a black woman, it gave her a real opportunity to be enveloped into that part of who she is. She and her friend Leah Williams, she holds that experience close to her heart. 4 days after addressing reporters in Howard, Harris traveled to South Carolina, a key early primary state with a large African-American electorate. She spoke at the annual Pink Isis Gala, hosted by her sorority Alpha Kappa Alpha, the nation's oldest black sorority, which has a network of 300,000 members. In her official campaign kickoff speech in Oakland, California last weekend, Harris stood before 20,000 people and spoke of some of her African-American heroes, faces she grew up with on Shelton's wall. When abolitionists spoke out in the Civil Rights Workers' March, the oppressors said they were dividing the races and violating the word of God, she said. But Frederick Douglass also said his best, and Harriet Tubman and Dr. King knew, to love the religion of Jesus is to hate the religion of the slave master. Asking the Washington Post interview how her African-American background has influenced her, Harris said, it's kind of like asking how did eating food shape who I am today. It affects everything about who I am, she said. Growing up as a black person in America made me aware of certain things that maybe if you didn't grow up black in America, you wouldn't be aware of. As for an example, she said, racism. I grew up in a hot spot of the civil rights movement, she said, but that civil rights movement involved blacks. It involved Jews. It involved Asians. It involved Chicanos. It involved a multitude of people who were aware that they were laws that were not equally applied to all people. As Harris has become a prominent figure in state and national politics, many Indian Americans are thrilled and a little surprised to learn of her Indian background. It's only been in the last year or so that she's really come out and embraced it, said Aziz Hanifa, executive editor of Life of India Abroad, the oldest and largest South Asian newspaper in the United States. Harris has never made a secret of her Indian heritage, and she has fought on behalf of issues of importance to most Indians, including immigration reform. She has appeared at Indian American gatherings throughout her career. Indian American publications probably use her Indian first name, which means lotus flower, along with her middle name, Devi, the Sanskrit word for goddess, which Harris generally doesn't use. In 2009 interview with India Abroad, Harris said her Indian background has had a great deal of influence on what I do today and who I am. She told the interviewer her African American and Indian heritage are an equal weight in terms of who I am. She contends we have to stop seeing issues and people through a plate glass window as though we were one-dimensional. Said we have to see that most people exist through a prism and they are a sum of many factors. Shakar Nashima, chairman and founder of the AAPI Victory Fund, a national super PAC founded in 2015 that focuses on building the political power of Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders, said Harris in the past years has done several high-profile speeches and events with Indian American groups that have helped to raise her profile. I'm so glad she has discovered her Indianness, Narishma said with a laugh, something, but I absolutely love that it's happening. It's not something she has exhibited over the years. M.R. Ragaswamy, a Silicon Valley entrepreneur, investor, and philanthropist, said Harris' story parallels the rising influence of the United States Indian community. Ragaswamy said Indians represent about 1% of the population and now have about 1% of representation in Congress, with 4 members of the House of Representatives and 1 senator. My advice to Kamala would be, you got a great story. You should tell it, he said. As the community has come of age, there is a yearning for successful role models, and she totally fits that role or that model. In a Post interview, Harris said she disagreed with the perception that she has not stressed her Indian background, saying she had been focused on her Indian community my entire life. She said the view that she embraced it wholeheartedly only more recently was a matter of what people are aware of and what the press has focused on. She pointed out, for example, to her advocacies as early as 2001 after the 9/11 attacks, when South Asians became the targets of abuse and violence. I was very active in fighting to make sure that the community was not in subject of hate and bias and ill treatment, she said. I grew up with a great deal of pride and understanding about my Indian heritage and culture, she said. In their San Francisco home, where they host the 2010 fundraiser, Puri in Puena, said they were enthusiastic about Harris. Puri, a Silicon Valley software executive, and Punin, a finance executive, have helped introduce Harris around Silicon Valley. Puni said Harris' multicultural background appeals to many people. It's like a Rorschach test. He said every person can interpret her differently. The Washington Post, Chelsea Chains contributed to this report. All right, so here's a Kamala Harris story. Again, she said, I am who I am, right? Define herself as American, right? Now, again, when you start hearing that, goes back to when they had that time when, what was her name on The View, when she talking about, I don't want to be even the black, I'm not this, I'm American. Okay, anytime you start hearing that, you know there's some discrepancy in that person, right? So here it is again, Kamala Harris is trying to run for the 2020 presidential race. And then you have the Black Internet Corner with the American DOS, again, I'm a descendant of that. And, you know, there's some things as to, again, people are upset that people are not just want to take somebody just on face value, right? We're not falling for the black face, right? We need substance. We need to understand that if you claim, right? And that's the thing, this claimage. People are claiming to be, but they're not. And so by claiming, it's like fraudulent, right? It's like having a false claim. You can't be held accountable because, again, you can walk away because, again, we find out that you were false in your claim. Now, here's this story that breaks out, talks about in early 2010, and said that there was an Indian couple that hosted a fundraiser, was back in the Pacific Heights. And then at that time, there was a Democratic candidate from California Attorney General, which was Kamala Harris. And so what happened was she at that time had been the high-profile district attorney for about 6 years. And then they had the two friends that actually had that, and they ended up inviting her. And the people who were present were like, well, why you invited her? And they say, well, you know, that's my peep. You know, that's our peep, right? She is family. Now, again, is an Indian talking like that? This is my peeps? Is that what Indians say? I'm pretty sure everybody who is now Americanized talk like the African American or the black Americans. Let's make this distinction here. When people say African Americans, that encompasses everybody who descendancy will take back to the continent that is not long the continent, especially coming to this country, the United States, will be classified as an African American. Black American is that which who as the lineage of that which who produced and made and built this country, who went through the historical atrocities in this land. We're not documented by voluntarily bringing ourselves here. We were involuntarily brought here, if we want to go with that story. So when somebody says African American, that does not mean you're cut from the cloth or the bloodline. So let's get that straight. And you can't wear it like a costume. So people try to assume or make it that black American is something that just because if I'm immerse myself in the culture, I'm within the environment of it, right? I have some affinity of friendship that I have adopted to become family, makes you in the family. It does not. Again, if you have brothers and sisters and that each one of you have the same father but different mothers, or the same, well, let's say you had the same parents, and then you have your children. When your children are born, they're going to have a difference in them because, again, the person who, the two that makes them will be different than your brother and sister, unless y'all all sharing you in a concubine. Right? So there will be a distinction in you. Well, that's what the distinction here is that when it comes to this land we call the United States. Those who come here voluntarily, whose parents are from another origin, you might be classified as an African American. And everybody will say, you say black is black. Well, black is black. But black has a distinction in this land due to the historical aspect of it. And everybody wants to try to as that has no real significance. But we as the DOS, the ADOS in this land are telling you, you wrong. You are mistakenly wrong. And we're not going to sit here any longer and act as if like that our lineage and our blood ties don't have no significance and no value in the country that our ancestors gave you an opportunity to leave from wherever our origin that you left from. Okay? So we see that she's 54 years old, trying to run the 2020 Democratic presidential candidate, right? But what's funny is she says that she was going to be first of several things. She's going to be the first woman, the first African woman, the first Indian American, and the Asian American. Now, guess what? You're not the first Black American. Let me say that again. According to the article, it states that you'll be the first woman, the first African American, the first Indian American, and the first Asian American. Now, those classifications, again, makes it seem like we're all inclusive in that, in which we are. But we have a distinction in this land that, again, that only those who are cut from the bloodline gets to be in that class. And why is it that everybody's offended? Because we decided that we want to have a distinction because, again, we have a claim in this land. Now, it goes on in the article that talks about that her father came from Jamaica. Her father came from Jamaica. She has two immigrant parents. How is it that you are Black American? Now, again, you can run and be African American, and that's cool and fine. But Black American is what we're talking about here, right? So, again, you make the bridge as talking about Barack Obama. Now, that there was also a fooling game, too. Because, again, a lot of people didn't understand. You are of your father's seed. If his father is a Kenyan, then he is Kenyan by seed. You are Jamaican by seed. You may say African American, but you don't say Jamaican. Why don't you say you're a Jamaican Indian? But you say African American. How is that so? Only because you can be born in the country and get on the documentation, again, as a way to undermine the Black Americans in this land. That's all that is classification. And so now when Black Americans are talking, people are upset because why? It feel like we are distancing ourselves from us. No, we're just staking our claim. Now, again, she says when she's asked, she wrestled with similar introspections about race and ethnicity and identity. Right? The reason why? Because, again, go back to The View when Barack Obama was asked that question by Barbara Walters when she said, why are you trying to say that you're the Black president? Why aren't you like the biracial president? Right? He said the same thing that you're saying. Again, maybe you're taking from the playbook. You're saying because people see me as Black, then I'll be considered Black. Now, that's a game. You can't just put this on like a costume. You have to be of the bloodline. You're in the African American umbrella, but you're not of the Black American. So when Black Americans are coming to you and talking about it, it's because they are talking from a perspective of what they come through lineage. You not by blood, but you're trying to be by relation. And so when you do come like that, guess what? Now that they talking about, we're going to lay down what it is that, again, if you want this aspect, then what are you talking about? Right? So according to her in this article, she says that she didn't spend not much time dwelling on how to categorize herself. Well, you know why? See, that lets you know right there. Me as a DOS and all the rest of us who are DOS, ADOS, how you want to Black DOS, again, some people try to say that because we're saying that we're descendants of slaves, that sometimes we have been institutionalized and then we hate ourselves. No, we are claiming that which is the most potent, the most precious, the one who gave the most. And we don't degrade them for the cause for your safety of your mind. That's who our ancestors are. And we take that with pride and joy. So here's a person who has to contemplate on how to categorize herself. We don't have no option box to check. You understand? There is no option box. It's funny how everybody get to check the box we in, but we don't get to check the box you in. Now it says that she felt like, according, again, when you historically in this country, you have to be compartment about what you fit in, because this country was built on the fabric, the interwovenness is built on race. As your mother, who comes from India, asked, do they have a caste system? And I would have to ask, based on, according to the article, said that your grandfather, right? Your grandfather was a politician in India. Now, is he part of the Dravidian? If you say Hindu, then I know that, again, according to history and how that made up to make that Hindu, then I understand what that is. You're not fooling I with that. Now, again, it's not taken away for the simple fact that, again, that you, again, according to this article, says that one was raised around, went to church with, fraternized with, went to school, idolized certain individuals, but once again, you come up short of the bean pie. You are not of the bloodline. And it seems like a lot of people who are really not of the bloodline are having advocates, or let's say activists, or activating their ideal as to all blacks are black. As if, again, the claimage, if there's going to be any claim given, if you can't prove your bloodline, then how do you get to speak on behalf of the people who are part of that? Now, this has nothing to do about her running for president. That's on her. If she want to run, that's okay. But I'm trying to give some clarity as to why some of the people are saying the things that they're saying out here. Now, again, she says that she credits, right, that largely Hindu immigrant single mom who adopted black culture. See, adopted. We didn't adopt nothing. This is who it is. We don't adopt. See, that means to adopt means you were something else, and then this is now you're taken as a secondary. This has always been what it is, and it will always be until no longer have no breath in this body. So there's a distinction. We don't adopt. This is just what it is with us. So according to that adopted black culture, you immersed your daughter in it. That's what it said. Grew up embracing the Indian culture as well, living proudly an African American life. Now again, African American don't necessarily mean that you are a black American. You have many people here who come from different geographical locations. Jamaica, Trinidad, Cuba, Puerto Rico, you name it, they did it. But do they get to say they're African American? Now here's somebody who always been here, who don't got another homeland. How do you get to be in the same classification as the people who here? So there's got to be a distinction here. That don't mean I'm not family with you. I'm just saying based on the history here. So again, she said that her mother understood very well that she was raising 2 black daughters. How is that? Oh, because your father is Jamaican, right? We're going to go with that. Your father is Jamaican, who did not want to say anything in the article. But how are you raising 2 black daughters? You would be raising 2 Jamaican daughters. Oh, you black. You black. Right? You're black, but the culture that you're teaching them is still not from what the father is. The father is not a black American. The father is a Jamaican. So the culture that she would need to inculcate in the daughters would not be black American culture, even though this is where you was residing. But you're using this to try to validate your point, and I'm telling you, that's not valid. Now, she says that she write and published in an autobiography that truth we hold, she knew that her adopted homeland would see my and me as black girl. Now, going back to her country, based on the simple fact that who she copulated with, in her mama's country, they going to be looked at as black. So what is the mama looked at then? Because we understand the caste system over there, so that means that the mama must be considered to be white. Oh, really? Right? So she determined that she would make sure they would grow up into be confident, proud black women. How can that mama do that? You have to be trusting in other people. Again, you could be, right? Let's say that, what was that, what was that story that used to be? The wolf boy, the one that was raised by wolves, right? So you take him, find him as a baby, he raised around wolves. He learned the culture and the ways of the wolves and do like the wolves until the humans came and got him, and they still was like, well, you're not a wolf, you actually a human. That would be the same thing here. You're taking on the person, you're taking on the identity of what is not yourself. Again, we'll give comments to your mother about her again, going out in the 60s and 70s, that you said, and marching and protesting with her black husband. So you see you using that black to try to, again, get yourself connected to black American. You mean her Jamaican husband, not her black husband. He may be considered black and everything in this country, again, because it's like a caste system, a color system, a Varna system. Everything black is black, but we're talking about the distinction of the bloodline. So again, she brought her daughters to India. They visit. They was used to eating cooked Indian food. They was wearing Indian jewelry, but they worship American church. So again, so what? You didn't teach them the Indian way of religion? You give them all that, but they don't know nothing about that? Or is that just for prose as for an article? So you using Frederick Douglass and Harriet Tubman on the wall that you've seen, that you idolize, that you want to become. So again, we're not taking nothing away from that, again, if you want to take on that. But again, the point is, you know, people act as if like the claiming that we have as black Americans in this land, that we're not legitimate. We're trying to act as if to say that anybody can just be what we are just because you want to put it on, because it's convenient. So you got to take the good, the bad, and the ugly. You don't get to jump off on here just to say I am when it's convenient. No. And because we don't wear the mask. Anybody else who try to pretend wears the mask. We wear what it is. And as John Henry Clark said, we wear it well. So it's just funny that the article comes out and say, I am that I am, or I am what I am. So then say what you is. Quit pretending, because again, that people says they identify you as black, but you have to correct them and tell them who you are. And who you are is you're not black American. So you can still run as a candidate, but just let it be known, black Americans are now sifting through and finding out who people really are, so that we can hold you accountable for what you promised. Because if we find out later, then it's shame on us. But if we vet you before, then we know what to expect. Well, here's another show again. Mr. Blows Your Mind come with another thought-provoking topic. You know, I got to try to get another show out, y'all, because they've been holding me up, you know, the way they got me doing it. So I want to thank all those who came and listened to the video. Hit that like button, subscribe button. And once again, as John Henry Clark has said, only friends we got is us. When you see each and every one of us, give it that universal nod, brother, sister nod. What's good? What's up? Let's stop all this bicker and fight with one another, because everything that everybody's trying to get and steal from us, we must make our claim. Too many people are stealing from us. Too many people have gotten so much from us, and then they disrespect us in the confines of their own. So it's time for us to make that claim. And so, until the next show, peace, love, and hair grease.
Portions of the following program may be unsuitable for younger or more sensitive viewers. Viewer discretion is advised.
enemy has only images and illusions, behind which he hides his true motives. Destroy the image, and you will break the enemy.
I'm here to tell you tonight that the businessmen, the mayor of this city, the police commissioner of this city, and everybody in the white power structure of this city must take a responsibility for everything.
Can you feel it?
Luther and I, and everyone in this arena tonight, are unified by the same great American values. We're proud of our country. We respect our flag. Wouldn't you love to see one of these NFL owners, when somebody disrespects our flag, to say, get that son of off the field right now, out, he's fired. He's fired!
Race is when you use your power and influence to subject people into inferiority. Utterances can't be racist.
Look around you, man. They own this shit. They own this couch you sitting on, them shoes you got on your feet, this building, this school, this country, you. We're behind enemy lines, dog.
So you must first of all remember that this system was not originally designed with black people in mind. Right on! And it definitely was not prepared for black people to, in the end, begin to demand their rights and an equal share in this country which they've died for. Right on! Hey, and we definitely are not going back to Africa.
In the church, we used to sing the song, "Good news, the chariot is coming." While you sit here today, knowing that you have come to hear good news, you must realize in advance what good news for you might be bad news for somebody else. What good news for the sheep might be bad news to the wolf.
They say, oh, things are getting so much better for you. In 1849, they was hitting blacks on the head 100 times a day. In 1990, they hit them 48 times a day. Isn't it better? Oh, it's got to be better. You're saved 52 blows.
The only purpose of most black Americans on earth today is to destroy.
I think that's noble. Italians love Italians. When Irish love Irish. But when a nigga loves a nigga, it's an unpardonable sin. They have blood in their hands. When we say they have blood in their hands, we are not saying him, George Bezos, went and killed. But white people colonized us. They dispersed us. They enslaved our people. They sucked our economy dry. They are still sucking it dry even today. That's white people. Tony Blair, George Bush, Napoleon Bonaparte, Leopold, Adolf Hitler, Benjamin Netanyahu. All white people, they are the same. They are racist and they are full of hate.
I've been waiting for you. You have many questions, and though the process has altered your consciousness, you remain irrevocably human. Ergo, some of my answers you will understand, and some of them you will not. Concordantly, while your first question may be the most pertinent, you may or may not realize it is also the most irrelevant.
Why am I here?
Our world is coming crumbling down. The coons are coming.
You got to understand that white America has an uncanny way of making the victim the victimizer. Excuse me, master, for putting my head in the way of your club. Not that your club is brutalizing my head and putting hickeys on it. My head got in the way of your free swing and broke your shiny stick, and I want to apologize for that.
Your life is the sum of a remainder of an unbalanced equation inherent to the programming of the Matrix. You are the eventuality of an anomaly which, despite my sincerest efforts, I have been unable to eliminate from what is otherwise a harmony of mathematical precision. While it remains a burden assiduously avoided, it is not unexpected and thus not beyond a measure of control, which has led you inexorably here.
There are more connections in the human body than there are stars in the galaxy.
We possess a gigantic network of information to which we have almost no access.
Matrix is older than you know. I prefer counting from the emergence of one integral anomaly to the emergence of the next, in which case this is the 6th version.
5 months before me. 3. There are only 2 possible explanations. They were 5 months before me. Either no one told me, or no one knows.
Precisely. As you are undoubtedly gathering, the anomaly is systemic, creating fluctuations in even the most simplistic equations.
Control me! I'm gonna smash you to biscuit! You can't make me do anything like Chris!
Choice. The problem is choice.
Let us remember that we are not brutalized because we're Baptists. We're not brutalized because we're Methodists. We're not brutalized because we're Muslims. We're not brutalized because we're Catholics. We're brutalized because we are black people in America.
Because white people made him to be what he is. They made him to look evil, because that's their role, to make all of us black people to look evil and to hate ourselves. I can't hate.
You're a nigga till you die. If you're a poor nigga, you're a poor nigga. If you're a rich nigga, you're a rich nigga. But you never stop being a nigga, and if you get to be educated, you're just an educated nigga.
I'm told every day I'm on air that I'm racist because I called out racism. That is maddening to me, and I'm crying about it because it's crazy.
So the Honorable Elijah Muhammad is teaching you and I and trying to tell the white man to get this powder keg out of his house. Let the black man separate from his house. Let the black man have his own house. Let the black man have his own land and his own property.
I thought the bitch was white! Damn it! I thought the bitch was white!
That's true.
I think that white people are so guilty, knowing what they've done to black people, that they feel if the deeds were reversed, they would hate the black man if he had done the same thing to them. So it's actually, it reflects a guilt complex on the part of whites when they ask us, do we hate them? And if you notice, Uncle Sam has formed a habit of going all over the world. He calls it the ugly American, or the American image. He thinks that everybody hates him because it's a guilt complex. And if you think that if you are worried about Europeans hating you, and they're your allies and your cousins, well, naturally it would follow for you to think that Negroes in this country would hate you, especially in light of what has been done to black people in this country by white people.
Now, check it out. The white ball dominates everything, right? Knocks the shit out the yellow ball, the red ball, right? And the game's over when the white ball drives the black ball completely off the table.
But you have to see that all of this is hypocrisy.
I love Malcolm. Malcolm called me the Sunday that he died. I was working Basin Street East. He said, "Brother Greg, you coming by today?" And I said, "Malcolm, I love you." And I said, "I love you so much, I don't even want to take a chance to be there." He said, "What do you mean, Brother Greg?" I said, "Well, I close tonight, Sunday night at Basin Street East." And I said, "But I had my wife book me a flight into Chicago at 8 o'clock this morning. And I'm going to Chicago, and I had way beneath my salary booked me into a college about 10 miles from the airport. And I'm going to go there and speak this afternoon, and I'm going to stay there until they tell me you dead. Because I'm not going to let this government get 2 of us for the price of 1. And I'm going to call Adam Clayton Powell when I finish talking to you and beg him not to come there. Because today, the United States government is going to get you.